Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to our City Council meeting of May the 27th, 2025. Madam Clerk, may we please have a roll call?
Yes, it is 7:00 p.m. Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Torres Walker. Councilmember Freitas.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Rocha.
Here.
Mayor Bernal.
Here.
I will note for the record, Councilmember Torres Walker is absent at 7:01 p.m.
All right, will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, will you please report out on closed session?
Thank you. Yes, Mayor, Council, late this afternoon, the City Council met earlier in closed sessions. The council discussed three items in closed session. The first was an existing litigation matter entitled Trent Allen versus the City of Antioch. This is a case pending in the Federal District Court for the Northern District of California. No reportable action was taken. A report was given to the council by legal counsel. Secondly, the council met in regards to a conference with real property negotiators. This was for property located at East 18th Street and Wilson Street. The negotiating parties for the city were the city manager and myself. The other party with whom the city is negotiating is the Contra Costa County Fire Protection District. Under negotiation were price and terms of payment. No reportable action was taken. And then finally, the city council met to discuss another real property negotiation. This was for the property located at 1 Marina Plaza. The city negotiators were the city manager and myself. The city is negotiating with Sean McCauley, the owner of the adjacent property, and under negotiation are price and terms of payment. No reportable action was taken.
All right, thank you very much. Before we continue, Mrs. City Manager, are there any items that we wanted to pull off the agenda for tonight, please?
Sorry. For the regular agenda, we're going to pull items number 6 and 7. And for consent, we'll strike item number N, or letter N.
All right, so, yes, sir.
Strike it.
Yes, pull it, strike it, we'll never speak about it again. Just kidding.
All right, so, and item numbers 6 and 7 are being continued to, or proposed to be continued to a later date. All right, do I have a motion from the city council to pull items continue items number 6 and 7 and consent calendar item number
N.
letter N?
So moved.
I have a motion. Have a second?
Second.
All right. Motion second. Please cast your votes.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right. Thank you. On to public comments. Madam Clerk, do we have public comments on non-agendized items?
Yes, we currently have 8 speaker cards.
All right. Thank you. Will you please read the rules for the public speakers?
Yes, and we have 9 speaker cards now. Welcome to a meeting of the Antioch City Council. Your attendance is appreciated. The State Ralph M. Brown Act guarantees the public's right to address the City Council within framework of speaker rules. Because agendas encompass many business items, speaker rules enable the meeting to be efficiently conducted and conducted at a reasonable hour. The City Council can only take action on items that are listed on the agenda. If you wish to speak about an item not on the agenda, the public comment section of the agenda is for you. Unagendized comments are provided till no later than 7:30 p.m. when the City Council moves on to agenda items. There is another opportunity for public comments at the end of the meeting. If you wish to speak either during public comments or during an agenda item, please fill out a speaker request form located at the entrance of the council chambers. Please place the speaker request form in the tray near the city clerk before the city council meeting begins. This will enable us to call upon you to speak. The speaker request form is retained as a public record and as such may be shared with others upon request in line with the California Public Records Act. On your speaker request form, please identify if the comment is for announcement of community events, public comment, or a specific agenda item. No one may speak more than once on an agenda item or during public comments. Speakers will be notified shortly before they are called upon to speak. When you are called to speak, please limit your comments to the allotted time, up to 3 minutes, at the discretion of the mayor. The consent calendar is a group of items which are determined to be routine. These items are usually considered all at once and approved without further discussion. If you are opposed to action which is recommended for an item on the consent calendar, please submit a speaker request form before the meeting and place it in the speaker card tray near the city clerk. This will enable the item to be removed from the consent calendar and call on you to speak. We do have a public hearing tonight. During public hearing, each side is entitled to one main presenter who may not speak for more than 10 minutes. All other speakers during public hearing items are entitled to a maximum of 5 minutes. These time limits may be modified depending on the number of speakers or number of items on the agenda at the mayor's discretion. Groups who are here regarding any item may identify themselves by raising their hand at the appropriate time to show support for one of their speakers. During certain types of hearings, the applicant is allowed to give their presentation first. After all testimony is received, the applicant has an opportunity for rebuttal. After having heard from the public, the agenda item will be closed. Deliberations will then be limited to members of the city council. And we have 9 speaker cards, and our first speaker will be Melissa Case, followed by Juan Rubio and Josh Renwick.
Madam Clerk, 2 minutes and 30 seconds each, please, so that each have time to speak. No, that's it. So you can speak at the end for 3 minutes if you'd like to.
I'd rather speak at the end.
Okay.
Okay, so 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Juan Rubio. Sorry, let me get the timer. Okay, it is ready.
Good evening. My name is Juan Rubio. I'm a 9th grader at Antioch High School and an Earth Team intern. I'm going to speak on the negative health impacts of poor air quality on Antioch residents. Air quality, specifically in Antioch, is lowered through the city being located near industrial facilities like factories and landfills, wind patterns carrying pollutants such as carbon monoxide and particulate matter into the city, and our extremely high temperatures. During the summer, increasing ozone levels, which then increases smog and reduced visibility, just to name a few. Human activity plays a large role in lowering air quality, as the burning of fossil fuels through activities such as burning coal and powering vehicles is the largest source of air pollution in the United States, specifically California. Although it is already known that poor air quality affects us negatively, the extent of it may not be. Poor air quality affects our respiratory system by causing inflammation and irritation of the lungs, which causes coughing, soreness, chest pains, and worsens existing respiratory diseases such as asthma and bronchitis, and our cardiovascular system by increasing the risk of cardiovascular diseases, such as strokes and heart attacks, as well as heart disease. Poor air quality is even linked to neurological problems, which can increase the risk of neurological diseases such as Alzheimer's. It is important to note that children, elders, and people already sick are more vulnerable to the effects of air pollution, and that air pollution increases the risk of premature death. Air quality can be measured in many ways, but I would like to spotlight two. First, being the interactive online tool used in California called Cal EnviroScreen that will be mentioned later, and Air Quality Index. Air Quality Index was created by the U.S. Environmental Agency and serves as a tool that uses air quality sensors and monitors to measure pollutants like nitrogen dioxide, ozone, and more, and then converts them into an index value from 0 to 500, the higher the number, meaning worse air quality. These measured pollutants are then divided into 6 color-coded categories for easy reading. In order to lower air pollution, we must act on a governmental, communal, and individual level. For example, the government could create new legislation that favors protection of wildlife, national parks, encourages renewable energy, and hinders industries like fracking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Josh Renwick, followed by Grace and, I'm sorry, Miss Magodo and Johnny Hernandez.
Good evening, council members. My name is Josh Renwick, and I'm a resident in a nearby community. The recent opening of the auto processing terminal here in Antioch presents a valuable opportunity. This facility can bring real, measurable benefits to the city. Longshore jobs, trucking jobs, auto processing positions, and increased revenue from ship traffic. But in order for the terminal to reach its full potential and to deliver a meaningful, positive economic impact, it needs more ships. I recently learned that a cap is in place on the number of vessels allowed to call at the port. This policy was set by a previous administration, and it raises important questions. Is this ship limit still serving the best interests of Antioch and the surrounding communities? Who established the cap, and what purpose does it serve today? When we look at neighboring cities, we see what's possible. The Port of Benicia handles 35 to 40 ships per year, creating hundreds of jobs for dock workers, truckers, and auto processors. Richmond sees about 25 ships annually, generating substantial local economic activity. Imagine the boost to Antioch's economy and to its local businesses if the port welcomed even 25 to 30 ships a year. According to the Environmental Impact Report on the City of Antioch's website, the Antport's terminal was approved to receive up to 25 ships annually. Since July of 2024, only 3 ships have come through. That's far below the approved limit and a missed opportunity for growth. Antioch has what it takes: a ready workforce, existing infrastructure, and growing momentum. That's why I respectfully ask this council to revisit the current ship limit policy. Let's take a fresh look at whether it still aligns with Antioch's goals for economic development, job creation, and long-term prosperity. Thank you for your time and for your continued commitment to the future of this city.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Grace Fung and Aoween Magtoto, followed by Johnny Hernandez and Richard Mari.
Hi, my name is Grace. My name is Awin, and we are also interns from Antioch High School for Earth Team. According to the CalEnviro screen, a website that maps air pollution in different counties within California, Antioch High School is in the orange zone, surrounded by the red zone for air pollution. This is clearly a big problem. Now more than ever is the time for our youth to be educated and exposed to environmental science topics. We are seeking for the Antioch City Council to work with the Antioch Unified School District to implement environmental science classes on the elementary to middle school level. Students could transition into high school by taking electives or continuing to pursue pathways that specialize in these topics that they've already been learning about. They can also go on field trips to learn from industry leaders and also firsthand see what climate change problems are occurring in our society. This is especially important because we have tried implementing a compost system at Antioch High School with the help of our public services. However, our students, for lack of a better word, do not care. If we teach our children from an earlier age about environmental issues, they will definitely care, understand more, and also feel more motivated to take action. We'd also like our schools to implement reusable cutlery and trays to cut down on the waste implemented in our cafeterias.
As Grace said, knowledge is power. To attack the lack of participation and awareness of our youth, we need to solve it at the root problem. We want to start with AUSD, Antioch Unified School District, to incorporate trash sorting programs starting in elementary and eventually carry on to middle school and high school. If children understand and instill the knowledge of waste, recycle, and compost, it'll be carried through onto adulthood and communities around them. Students can feel a sense of leadership and impact and be inspired to pursue careers in the environmental field. We want to collaborate with not only after-school programs from these respective elementary schools, but collaborate with Republic Resources, us Earth Team interns, and also resource recovery ambassadors, as mentioned when we started to instill our compost program in Antioch High School. Thank you so much.
Next speaker is Johnny Hernandez, followed by Richard Mari and Cindy Alvarenga.
Hello everyone, my name is Johnny Hernandez and I'm a junior at Antioch High and I'm a member of Earth Team. Today I will be speaking about, as mentioned before, Cal EnviroScreen. Cal EnviroScreen 4.0 is a mapping tool used to identify California communities affected by pollution and where people are exposed. They use percentiles to rank certain areas in California 0 through 100, with 100 being the highest affected and 0 being no effect. Cal EnviroScreen measures a number of pollutants, and pollutants are grouped including ozone, particle matter, drinking water contaminants, pesticide use, toxic releases from facilities, and traffic impacts. This leads to my next discussion. In this exact area where we are right now, including downtown Antioch and Antioch High, our Cal EnviroScreen score is 93%, which means we are in the red. This means we face high exposure to air pollutants, and for some specific percentiles we face are toxic releases at 72% and 61% of particle matter. This shows what we are being exposed to and how much of a rate it is at. I also want to compare the current area we are at right now to another part of Antioch where Deer Valley is located. That area scores a 25% on Cal EnviroScreen, which means they are in the green. This is showcasing how wealthier and nicer areas of Antioch is less likely to see these pollutants as much as the citizens here are in this area. Call for action. Ways we can really reduce these exposure to pollutants are using renewable energy, reducing, reusing, and recycling, and use different ways of transportation to lower carbon emissions. We as a community need to understand these environmental factors, and we need to make change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Richard Mari, followed by Cindy Alvarenga and Moriella.
Greetings, City Council. My name is Richard Mowry. I'm a long 25-year resident of Antioch. I'm a regular many-year tenant at the Antioch Marina. And I understand that there's some 37% proposed rate increases at the marina.
Excuse me 1 second. There's actually an item going to be on the agenda to speak
Is
to
it?
that. Yeah, it's going to be a public hearing. That's going to be the first item after the consent calendar.
Okay, should I?
Yeah, if you could please wait until that item, that would be the appropriate
Okay,
time.
all right, thanks.
All right.
Right.
And you can start over again when that happens.
great.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Cindy, followed by Moriella and Danny.
Good afternoon. My name is Cindy. I'm a senior at Antioch High School, and I've come here to represent Earth Team as an intern. Today, I want to speak to you all on the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in Antioch, California. Central to this approach is the expansion of a bigger biking infrastructure through the establishment of physically separated bike lanes, strategically located bike sharing initiatives, and secure bicycle storage facilities at transit intersections. These investments not only mitigate reliance on carbon-intensive vehicular transport, but also yield positive public health benefits. By incentivizing electric vehicle adoptions via robust charging infrastructure, optimizing public transit networks, and bolstering local agricultural production to minimize long-haul transportation demands are critical key components to combating GHG, aka greenhouse emissions. Antioch faces struggles like neighboring cities. Therefore, supporting efforts such as these in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions would be a revolutionary step for the city, setting precedents of these localized solutions becoming a county-wide remedy to this very urgent problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Moriella, followed by Danny and Leslie May.
apologies. Good evening. My name is Morelia Gill, and I'm also from Antioch High, an intern for Earth Team. To advance Antioch towards zero waste, we encourage a targeted plan tailored to our community's needs. We wish to partner with Republic Services to expand curbside composting to all Antioch residents by 2026, ensuring organic waste is diverted from Keller Canyon landfill, a waste management service in Contra Costa. What we advise the City of Antioch to do is to launch a bilingual education campaign, English and Spanish, through Antioch Unified School District and the Antioch Community Center to teach proper trash sorting and waste reduction. In addition, installing more color-coded bins, green for compost, blue for recycling, black for landfill, with pictures to help guide sorting in high-traffic areas like Summersville Town Center, Prowett Family Park, and the Antioch Marina would also be beneficial. There are already a few, but adding more scattered throughout these recreational places avoids littering. Antioch can implement incentives for households and businesses that demonstrate high waste diversion rates, such as discounts on waste collection fees, to make sure households are truly reducing landfill waste over time. Tracking could be done by smart bin sensors or periodic audits. The city can work with the Antioch Chamber of Commerce, a nonprofit business organization, to create zero waste certified programs for local businesses to help meet recycling and composting standards. Finally, we can require all city-sponsored events such as the annual team block party to provide zero waste stations and volunteer sorting teams. These steps, implemented with local partners and resources, can significantly reduce Antioch's environmental footprint within years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Danny, followed by Leslie May.
Good evening. Danny Lanis, advocacy member at Bikes Bay. On April 19th, 2025, 32-year-old single father Dejon Key was struck and killed by a driver while he was biking to work on Lone Tree Way near the intersection of James Donlon Boulevard. Dejon suffered a traumatic brain injury as a result of the collision. He was dragged 75 feet and died in the hospital on May 1st, 2025. This incident occurred on a part of Lone Tree Way with only shared lane, also known as Sharrow, bicycle markings, despite a signed 45 miles per hour speed limit. A state law now prohibits the installation of Sharrows on any street sign above 30 miles per hour. Dejon was tragically the 13th person killed in a traffic crash on Lone Tree Way since 2019. In addition to at least 21 people seriously injured after the city widened parts of the corridor from 4 to 6 lanes and added the bike Sharrow markings. In July 2024, a 29-year-old mother of two named Linda Woolridge was struck and killed by a drunk driver while she was bicycling on Lone Tree Way near Sagebrush Drive. In nearly a year since the tragedy, there has been no action taken, and now another life has been lost. We ask for Antioch City Council and staff to, 1, coordinate with Bikes Bay and the Antioch Parks and Recreation Commission, which acts as the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee for the city, to develop a near-term safety project for Lone Tree Way and mitigate the ongoing dangers on this corridor. 2, develop an official Antioch bike walk plan to help identify and prioritize safety projects citywide. Antioch is currently the largest East Bay jurisdiction with no city-specific bike walk plan. Ultimately, if you're interested in getting involved with advocacy on this issue, join our Safe Streets Antioch group at bikeeastbay.org/Antioch. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Leslie May.
Good evening, council, staff, and community members. I'm coming up here to just to share some information with you, and I just want to say that to the community service officers of Antioch that met at Tailgaters Friday evening to rake Nicole Gardner and myself over the coals. in a public spot. I have always been Miss Leslie May. I'm going to be Miss Leslie May. I'm going to speak and say what I want to. So instead of them listening to some of these emotionally and intellectually delayed members, some here in the city of Antioch in the community, who lie on me, you need to get to know me yourself. They say I hate the police. I'm fighting for the police. They say I'm a racist. I hate specifically white people. I don't hate them. They're in my family. They're with me most of the time. So that's a lie. I got every color and every culture in my family. And they do come out with me. So instead of believing these liars, and instead of you taking your time to go to a public space to rake me and this young lady over the coals, you come and speak to us. We're not stupid. We're not dumb. We said that we don't know what we're talking about when we come in here. They're tired of us talking about change in Antioch. They're tired of us talking about the unhoused here in Antioch. Now, these same people need to understand that I come here and I've been fighting for the police department. I fight for their budget. I've been sitting and raking my brain, looking at the paperwork, same paperwork you guys are looking at, and all those hundreds of pages. Sometimes at work, I'm sitting there going through them and highlighting and printing searching pages, trying to figure out where we can save money without taking a lot of money from the police department. So I've been having your backs while you're out here stabbing me in my back. But the chief isn't here tonight, but I'm gonna make sure that I do send him an email about his CSO people that were at the club Friday night at Tailgaters right up here on Lone Tree, raking myself and this young lady over the coals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. May.
Our last speaker for public comment will be Nicole Gardner.
Good evening. Like I told you, Miss Leslie, before, I am not worried about these people, these folks. They got my name in their mouth. That means we must be doing something good, right? So I'm not worried about it. I wanted to say thank you all for passing home key, or a majority of you. That was amazing. Our friend Andrew have been fighting for that for quite a while, a long time, and it's long overdue. What I wanted to come up here and say, because something that really, I keep saying irritated, but I think it was a little bit more than irritated. When we were coming to the vote, and I was surprised that I was not the only one that caught it. I got so many phone calls and emails and text messages and messengers about your comments, Mayor, when you said that, oh, we're gonna do sweeps anyway. Like, we're gonna continue to do the sweeps. So there, in my mind, from what I got from that, it doesn't matter if we pass this grant or if that goes through. And I have been coming up here for quite a while, talking about these homeless sweeps, talking about the businesses and how we want to beautify the city, and that's going to affect the unhoused community. I actually even had an unhoused person come from a sweep that I went to earlier that day and brought him here. He was super nervous, worried about his appearance, worried about coming, and was bold enough to come up here and talk to you guys about what he was going through. And for you to make that comment, we're going to continue to have the sweeps. That just was so inhumane and so heartless. And I really feel as though, when even I talk to my friend Melissa over here, and when she tells me, oh, you're being too hard on the mayor, I'm like, I really felt like your mask slipped. Like, really, I don't even think you really knew exactly what you were saying. You're, oh, we're still gonna have the sweeps regardless. And I really just think you need to realize that your constituent, the people that voted for you, you're not only the leader for them, you're the leader for everyone in this city, including the unhoused. So I'm very grateful to all of you for voting for this, and for voting for Home Key, for voting for other housing opportunities for our unhoused community. I would love for you to explain during your mayor's comments about what you really, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I got from it. It was really heartless, really, really heartless. And our unhoused community deserve more than that for a leader and a mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our public comments. On to item number 1, proclamations. Do I have a motion to approve the proclamations? Have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Please cast your votes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Yes.
Before the students leave.
Yeah, I was gonna say something too.
Yeah.
I know that it's not protocol,
Your microphone.
I know it's not protocol for us.
Microphone.
Microphone.
I know it's not protocol for us to respond in public comments, but I would like to thank all the students from Antioch High School. It makes me proud to be a graduate a long time ago, and I was senior class president. Look where I am now. So the other thing I would suggest is that maybe staff could have Julie Hoswadovich from our staff to meet with you. She handles a lot of our environmental issues. She works with Republic, and I think some of the suggestions you made, she can actually, work with you and help them become reality. So I'm sure I speak on behalf of everybody, particularly the community. It's great to see young leaders come. Don't be shy. Keep on coming back. We need to hear from our youth, and I just really want to thank each and every one of you.
Yeah.
Councilmember. Yes,
You guys should beat me to the punch. I want to just, again, commend you for coming up and speaking. I, too, as Councilman Freitas is, I'm an alumni of Antioch High, and I actually was a principal there for 17 years. And one of the things I'm really proud to see tonight is that the Environmental Studies Academy lives on, and you're doing a great job. And please don't be frustrated with your peers who aren't as passionate about being green and doing the right thing, because you guys are leaders in your own way. And I appreciate you stepping up and speaking tonight. And I encourage you to speak to the school board as well, because they're the ones that set policy for K-12 education. And it would be great to have you serve as mentors, going down and speaking to our middle school students and to our elementary students about what you know and what you're learning, because education, is where knowledge comes from, and strength and power. So again, I just wanted to acknowledge you. I was too wondering if I should say something before you left, but again, proud to have you here tonight and proud to be a Panther. So thank you for your service.
All right, thank you all. Yeah, that was well done, especially the tag team that you guys were able to do, and the fact that you had your facts together and you spoke boldly about the issue you're passionate about. It was very well received, so thank you all. Come back again, please. All right. Do we have any public comment on item number 1?
Yes, we have a comment from Gavin Payton. I'm fixing the timer. Give me just a second. Okay.
Hello. I was just coming here to also kind of address a little bit of it for proclamation for the raising of the pride flag. One, thank you for acknowledging Pride Month. However, I would definitely love to see it go to someone of the community. And what I mean by that, I mean like someone that's actively in the community, that is not only that looks like us, but also that's fighting for the same rights, because Black African Americans that are LGBTQ are not really represented well across the county, especially here in Antioch. And as diverse as the city is, it's kind of really weird of how we're not including those groups of people, especially when it comes to the African American community, because the African American community is the one that has been a backbone across this country, especially African Americans that are LGBTQ, and we need to be inclusive of that. So that's my statement. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment?
No more public comment.
All right, so I will read each proclamation. The person who is going to receive it, if they could come down and say a few words, and then after both of them have been read, council will come down for pictures. So the first proclamation is for National Police Week, May 11 through 17, 2025. Whereas in 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Police Officers Memorial Day, and the calendar week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week to honor law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty while protecting others. Whereas law enforcement is an inherently dangerous and demanding profession in which dedicated professionals knowingly place their lives in harm's way to ensure the safety and well-being of their communities. Whereas the dedicated men and women of the Antioch Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Antioch. Whereas since the first recorded line of duty death in 1791, more than 23,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice. Whereas it is essential that all citizens know and understand the challenges, duties, and responsibilities of their police department, and that members of our department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, upholding justice and integrity. And whereas the Antioch City Council stands in solidarity with police families and wishes to honor all peace officers who through their courageous deeds have lost their lives or have become disabled in the performance of their duties. Now therefore I, Ron Burnell, Mayor of the City of Antioch, hereby proclaim May 11th through 17th, 2025 as National Police Week in the City of Antioch. If I could have Chief Vigil come down and receive this proclamation or say a few words before we come down. Or Acting Captain Maloney or Chief Vigil and Acting Captain Maloney, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the community. Thank you for recognizing National Police Week. This week serves as a time for reflection, a time to honor the sacrifice and service and unwavering commitment of law enforcement officers across the nation. In 2024, 147 officers in the United States lost their lives in the line of duty, and so far this year in 2025, 27 more have lost their lives in the line of duty. And close to home, we would want to remember and honor Pittsburgh police officers Larry Lassiter and Inspector Ray Giacomelli. Officer Lassiter was a former Marine who was killed in 2005 while pursuing an armed robbery suspect into Antioch. And Inspector Giacomelli lost his life in 2003 while following up on a homicide investigation. Their sacrifices deeply impacted East County and the Antioch Police Department, and their legacies continue to guide us. And to our officers past and present, thank you for your courage, professionalism, and commitment. And to our council and community, your support means more than words can express. It strengthens our resolve and reminds us of why we serve. Thank you for standing with and by law enforcement, not just during National Police Week, but every week. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, our second proclamation is Pride Month, June 2025. Whereas cities across the United States recognize and celebrate June as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, intersex, asexual, or allies, plus LGBTQIA plus Pride Month to commemorate the Stonewall riots of June of 1969. Whereas the City of Antioch has a diverse LGBTQIA plus community and is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equity for all people in the community. Whereas during Pride Month, we are reminded that our city's remarkable diversity is a gift that makes all of us stronger, and we rededicate ourselves to the ongoing cause of equality, acceptance, and freedom for all. Whereas while society at large increasingly supports LGBTQIA plus equality, it is essential to acknowledge that the need for education and awareness remains vital to end discrimination and prejudice. Whereas as we celebrate the resilience of the LGBTQIA plus community and their hard-won victories to advance acceptance and equality, we stand together, it says untied, united to defend and build on the progress of the LGBTQIA plus community toward a better, more inclusive, and safer future for all. Whereas the rainbow flag is widely recognized as a symbol of pride, inclusion, and support for social movements that advocate for LGBTQIA plus people in society, and whereas celebrating Pride Month influences awareness and provides support and advocacy for Antioch's LGBTQIA plus community, and is an opportunity to take action and engage in dialogue to strengthen alliances, build acceptance, and advance equal rights. Now therefore, I, Ron Burnell, Mayor of the City of Antioch, do hereby declare the month of June 2025 as Pride Month in the City of Antioch, and invite everyone to reflect on ways we can live and work together with a commitment to mutual respect and understanding. Mary Lutz and a few of her friends are here. So, yes, Mary.
We thought that we should bring some people from the community.
Sure.
Okay. So, good evening, council and community members. I want to thank the City of Antioch for continuing to recognize and celebrate Pride Month. At the time where the current presidential administration is showing hostility and hate towards the trans community and taking rights away for what it seems like everyone. It means so much to see our city stand firm in love, inclusion, and equality. A special thanks to you, Brad, for reaching out and inviting me to accept this year's Pride Proclamation. Thank you. As a mother of gay children, this moment is deeply personal, and I'm honored to stand here not just for them, but for every LGBTQ plus person who fights for their dignity, rights, and safety. Thank you to the LGBTQ community for your courage, and to the allies who continue to stand beside you. Your presence is powerful, and your support matters. Let's make sure the pride flag continues to fly at City Hall every June as a visible symbol of Antioch's commitment to justice and inclusion. I pledge to keep the flag donation coming so every year the city can send a clear message that you're seen, loved, and you belong. Because equality in who we love, whether it's a partner, a family member, or a friend, is just as important as civil rights that we fought for in this country. The rights of Black and brown communities, union workers, women, and the protections of elderly and children. Thank you, Antioch, for standing on the right side of history and standing with families like mine. And thank you for the opportunity to express my love for the residents of this city.
Thank you very much. If you all will just stay there, we'll come on down and we can take some pictures.
Okay,
Yeah.
Can I give this to somebody?
Certainly. Can you give it to City Clerk, please?
Oh, do you want to hold it for the picture? You're gonna take a picture.
You're gonna explain what that particular flag is?
You could do that.
Thanks.
I knew I brought you for a reason.
Mary, like this? Oh, wait, you got it facing me. Hold on.
Okay. I just wanted a picture of you, Nicole. Okay.
Okay, so this is actually the progressive flag, which is inclusive of Black and brown community and trans, and the triangle, the yellow triangle with the circle in the middle is for intersex people.
Yes.
So it's not just a regular pride flag. It's a progressive pride flag.
Yes.
I was wondering if she was going to. It's upside down.
Flip it around. Oh, it's upside down. Yep. Isn't it?
No, turn. Oh, like that?
No,
Okay,
that's
so-
okay.
You think exactly? I was thinking
there you
that
go.
that's what he meant.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
I was gonna say that too.
All right, wait, hold on.
Everybody ready?
On the count of three. Thank you.
Brad, your finger.
I'm sorry. Gotta get the official one.
Oh, that's the official. I'm thinking I have the official one. One more. It's Mary's phone. I got it.
Oh, for the.
Hold on, I think this is yours too, Mary.
Well, this is mine.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay, oh, let's take this one. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Here, somebody take this.
All right, ready?
Okay, here.
1, 2, 3.
I'm like, now, keep on giving.
All right, we're set. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Still on your way.
I was. smell coffee. I was like, what am I smelling this coffee? It was hella strong. Public comment? Because they stop it at 7:30. Yeah. But the agenda is not that long.
No, the agenda's not that.
The agenda is not.
All right, thank you. Going on to item number 2, announcements of civic and community events. Mr. Shahad, right?
How are we doing, Council? Good evening. This mic got low here. All right, so I'm proud to announce our Juneteenth celebration for the city of Antioch. This is going to be our 4th city-sponsored Juneteenth event. It's going to be Thursday, June 19th from 4 to 8 p.m., located at Williamson Ranch Park. We plan on having a great lineup of local vendors. We have over 30 vendors, several food vendors, and it's going to be a great lineup of community dancing and singing, along with a performance by the house band from the Warriors, Universal Soul, followed by Shanice, I Love Your Smile.
Really?
She will be here. Yes, okay. Yes. Yes, so it's going to be a great event. It's a community-led event. We put out an application for vendors and people to do speeches and so forth, and we got a great turnout of community support. So again, that's going to be June 19th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the actual day of Juneteenth at Williamson Ranch Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements of?
We have one from Katie Young.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. First off, I want to say thank you so much for the City of Antioch for taking part in the East Bay Annual Wine Festival that's happening on June 7th. Through a community grant, we were able to make this happen, so thank you so much. As part of the sponsorship that came from the City of Antioch, I am here tonight to present you with your VIP passes to come to the event. We really hope you'll come out and join us. The event is June 7th from 12 to 5 at Williamson Ranch Park, and we have an amazing lineup of food vendors. We've got about 10 different food vendors. We've got 4 live performances that are happening. The wine garden, we have 7 different wineries that are joining us. So it's going to be a great day, and we really hope you'll come out and join us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other announcements of community events?
None.
None. Any public comment? Oh, I'm sorry.
Gavin?
Hello. So the East County NAACP Youth Council is inviting the Antioch City Council to our 3rd annual 2025 Champions for Youth banquet. This year we're having an early bird special where you can get your tickets at $70 if you get them before August 10th. If you get them after August 10th, they will be $100. And it's going to be at the Concord Center on September 13th. And we would love to have you guys there. We had you guys there before, and we continue to welcome you guys there now to come continue. We're getting flyers, so the next meeting I'll come out with flyers and possibly some tickets if you guys want to buy tickets. But I believe I've sent some tickets to, I think it was to you guys' email, I'm not sure. But yeah, you guys can click the Eventbrite link to purchase your tickets. Thank you.
All right. What time is that at?
The doors open at 6.
All right, thank you. All right, any other public comment?
That's all.
All right. We will move on to City Council committee reports and communications. I'll start with Councilmember Wilson.
Actually, amazing enough, none of my committees met.
All right. Councilmember Freitas.
Okay, we're on the same one.
Yeah, we're on the same committee, and it meets tomorrow. So we'll have a report next time.
Okay, perfect. And then just a few places. I went out to the Deer Valley Football Showcase a week and a half ago, which was great to see scouts from all over the West Coast colleges out there watching not just Deer Valley, but Heritage was playing ball and somebody else. So that was great to watch. The city manager and I spoke for the Delta Association of Realtors. Talked to them about what's going on in the city, and that was a nice discussion. Public Works Week picnic. Thanks for inviting us out. That was a great celebration out there. I was able to start cornhole with the ringer out there, and then Councilmember Torres Walker finished off with him. So I'm not sure if they won or not. They didn't. Oh my goodness! I'll have to tell Tamisha she let me down. All right.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, go ahead. Sure, Louis.
That you mentioned community events. Councilman Freitas, Mayor Bernal, Councilman Wilson, and I were at the Oakview Memorial Park for the Memorial Day service, and it was really moving. I thought it was really well done. We honored our veterans. I didn't realize there was that many veterans buried there at Oakview Memorial Cemetery. And so one of the things that was a pleasant surprise for me is my brother, who served in the Marine Corps and passed away in 2013, was honored with a flag that was presented to my mom. So it was very moving for my family to have my brother recognized in that way. We're members of the Delta Veterans Group with the banners that fly, and right in front of Antioch High School, my brother's flag flies there in front of the gymnasium. So it was touching that they thought enough of my mom and my dad. My dad's 90 and my mother's 86, and it was hard for us to lose our brother, but for the DVG and for the committee to present a folded flag and present it to my family, I was very touched by that. So it was a very moving ceremony. Thank you.
Yeah, it was very well done. So if you didn't make it out this year, every Memorial Day, 10 a.m. out at Oakview Cemetery, the park there, it's beautiful. So I also spoke at the Industrial Association. They had a mayor's forum with the mayors of Pittsburgh, Concord, and Martinez, where we talked about reasons why the industrial industry should be looking at Antioch in our case, and why it's important to look at our whole region. They had a robotics ribbon cutting at Sutter Delta. That was another state of the art. I understand there's only 35 of these machines in the whole country. So Sutter Delta has one of them, and it's great to have that locally, and they're really upping their game there. APD had a bicycle safety event this weekend that was really well attended. Bikes were given away to kids, tricycle races. It was a lot of fun. So that was thank you APD for sponsoring that event, and the bicycle safety tacos. That was a great event. And then today, earlier this afternoon, Chief Vigil was sworn in as our police chief. So I want to recognize him. We're very proud to have him be our next chief. We know that he's already and will continue to do amazing things for our community. I want to thank our city manager, Scott, for her selection of Chief Vigil. I know there was a lot of folks that applied for the position, and so it wasn't for any shortage of strong competition, but Chief Vigil rose to the top, and so we're just excited about the future under your leadership for Antioch Police Department, with all the healing that needs to happen, and also the progress we need to make in our community. And I believe that we can have and will have the best police department in the United States in the next 3 to 4 years. So I'm super excited about our future. So that's it regarding my comments. As far as mayor comments, I just want to remember Supervisor Federal Glover. He passed away last week, and he was an amazing man that served on the Board of Supervisors for over 25 years. Prior to that, he was a city council member for the city of Pittsburgh. He worked in industry. He was always an advocate for East Contra Costa County, whether it was for transportation or for providing services. And he initiated the Northern Waterfront Initiative, which was designed in order to bring industry and business and jobs to the northern waterfront, which extended from Oakley all the way through the Central Bay. I don't recall which city it ends up in, but Hercules crossed the entire waterfront. So he championed that, and I just know that he was a real advocate for our region, and so it's a big loss. He retired in January of this year after serving over 25 years, or 24 years. He was a young man, 69 years old, and so I know it's a huge loss to the county, for the people that he touched, for his family, and so I just wanted to mention that and send our condolences and thoughts to his and prayers to his family during this time. There will be a service for him tomorrow at the Bay Church at 11 a.m. I know it's going to be pretty crowded up there because that church only holds so many folks. I understand there's people coming in from all over the country to come be a part of that service, but just wanted to recognize him and the incredible contribution he made to East Contra Costa County over the years. So next we have one presentation tonight. It's for the Land Use, Housing, Planning, and Permitting, which will be presented by our interim Community Development Director, David Storer, and the interim City Attorney, Derek Cole. So I'll turn it over to them if that's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, members of the public. David Storer, interim Community Development Director. I have a deal with Derek that I'm going to make all of the presentation tonight, and he's going to answer every question that you have. That was the trade-off. So in your packet, you have a slide point, and I'll go through that in a few moments. But earlier today, I believe I sent you an email, but for some reason, we've not been able to determine that it's been received by your council. Funnily enough, the staff has received it, so we're not quite sure. We'll figure that out. But on the overhead tonight, you'll see some data that we'll be providing before I get into my prepared presentation that's in your packet. And this is not really a David nerding out on demographics. It's really some information that was released earlier this month by the State Department of Finance and their Demographics Research Unit. And this is an annual report that is prepared that estimates the population of every jurisdiction in California, all of the 480-odd cities and 58 counties. And that packet, we'll get that to you if you haven't already received it. But some of the more notable things, and as it relates to Antioch, I'll just talk for a few moments about that. You'll see that California grew by 108,000, and also we're at about 39.5 million people in the state. Interestingly, population did increase in 35 counties, but not Contra Costa County. We actually lost a few folks, 24 people actually. Divide that by 3, and then you'll know how many families. But the point being is, you can see that there's very low growth rates in counties, and that's typical. And as you see in the report, as you delve into it on your own in the evenings, as I'm sure you do, you'll see that a lot of jurisdictions, cities, had way high increases. And I'll talk in a moment just about those that in Contra Costa County that did or did not have any annual rate of growth. You'll see that housing increased over last year by 125,000 units. And as I said previously, I'll just restate it, the governor wanted to do 3.5 million homes in 5 years through to 2025. And that would have been over 500,000 a year, which historically we've done about 80,000. And more recently, there's been about 110,000 on average. Last year was a good spike, if you will, for the housing community of 125,000 housing units. You can see in bullet number 5 the composition of that into single family, multifamily, and then also mobile homes. Basically half of the city's lost population, half gained, obviously. We can also see that through housing policy throughout the state, ADUs increased. And when I say ADUs, I'm also talking about JADUs as well. This next slide.
Can you let us know what ADU stands for, please?
Oh, sorry, accessory dwelling units. And then the JADU is junior accessory dwelling units. Thank you. Lots of acronyms. As you can see, the growth in our county, the jurisdiction of Oakley had the greatest rate of growth. But then to the right, you'll see that's a population of 47,000. And so you have to look at the numerical change as well. The positive message for Antioch is that we have a healthy rate of growth in our community. That means we're building homes and people are coming to our community. And you can see there that we have a population right now, as of January the 1st of this year, of approximately 117,000 people. So when you look at the 6 communities in Contra Costa County that gained, by deduction, you can see that there's 13 that did not have any rate of growth. They were negatively. So you can see, if you wanted to get into the numbers, there's in this data report from the DOF, you can actually see the numerical change as well. And that really sends a message for where population is going. The one other comment that I wanted to make just briefly on those 6 jurisdictions that have gained growth is that most of them are in the location where we're at in the county as opposed to other areas of the county. As we know, geographically, there's quite a difference. You can see here that, you know, Moraga, for example, lost 2% of growth, but it's a very small population to be dealing with, so the numerical change is not that great. And I won't go into the other pages of this, but you can kind of see what I did is I culled information from this summer report that you'll be able to get. I'd ask you to please just check your emails. It may have been filtered out or prevented, but if you can let me know, then I can make sure that you get it again. Or maybe what we do is we just go ahead and resend it as a matter of, I think the city clerk was going to do that, or I can do that later.
I resent it to everybody.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm not quite sure how to get out of this specific PowerPoint to transition into the other. Are there any questions on this data that I've provided? Oh, thank you.
I just have a quick question. So Antioch went up 117 in population. Is that true?
No. I'm sorry. That particular column, Mr. Mayor, is our current population.
Oh, 117.
Yeah, 117,000. Yeah,
oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah. But we went up by 0.5% in our population.
Correct. From last year. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
So it bodes very well for us. I mean, a rate of growth anywhere north of 0 to 5%, you really don't want to be in the world of 5% annual rate of growth. I mean, because that is a boom. So we're nestled very nicely. So tonight, just very briefly, we'll fly at 30,000 feet on land use law and as it relates to permitting and housing in the state of California. And I'll be assisted by legal counsel. We'll do it in 3 phases. Number 1, we'll talk about the permits, ministerial versus discretionary. We'll transition then into housing law and how it relates to the former bullet point. And as I said, Derek will answer all of your questions. So when it comes to regulating land use, you've probably heard of conditional use permits, variances, rezones, general plan amendments, the Subdivision Map Act. All of these things are there as part of the body politic to deal with private land development. And there are basically, if you can just remember that there's 2 permits, ministerial and discretionary. What the state has done over the last five years is kind of blur those lines, so to speak, or shifted from discretion to ministerial acts for the purpose of building more housing, consistent with state mandates. Recall that ministerial permits require no personal judgment on behalf of people such as myself or you as council members or even your planning commission. Discretionary means that you can say, I don't like yellow doors or green doors or black doors. I want to deny your project because of that. It takes away that kind of discretion. And we'll talk in a little bit about some of the transitions to design standards and objective standards later as we get into the finite. The ministerial permits, as I said, no judgment by city staff or elected officials. And you can see that building permits, for example, you've never seen a building permit come across your desk for you to approve. Those are staff functions. Accessory dwelling units, those are, again, encroachment permits, home occupations. Some ministerial projects also include over-the-counter permits, like a re-roof or a boiler permit or something like that, skylights, something that requires very little time in administering. The converse is true for discretionary. That occupies most of your public hearings. And we do have some significant laws in the state of California related to what kind of rises to the level of a public hearing, where discretion by local officials is exercised. You may know of the bodies here, the zoning administrator, a design review board, planning commission, and city council. while technically on our books we have a design review board, our planning commission functions in that role. Again, some of the permits that we have relating to where we exercise discretion related to specific projects and use permits, subdivisions, again, rezonings and general plans, and we'll even throw in their specific plans. Just as a general side note, a lot of people are confused about what a specific plan is. Just think of a general plan, think of your zoning ordinance, a specific plan will come in nestle right in between all of those. Again, these are the bodies that consider applications for discretionary and ministerial. Most of the ministerial are at the city staff level or at the zoning administrator level. Most of the decisions that are made are made by a planning technician at the staff level, planning manager, the chief building official, or even the planning director or community development director. A zoning administrator is not necessarily always involved in a city. Our city does have a zoning administrative professional that sits between staff and the planning commission, so to speak, as far as a hierarchy, and they can take on minor decisions and hold hearings. Their actions are appealable to the planning commission and then later on the council, should that be the case. Design review boards enforces standards and policies relating to the built environment. Planning commission, as you know, they can make recommendations to your city council. They can also be a final decision body unless appealed. And as I said, when it comes to appeals, your council has probably acted on those. Those are, again, discretionary, where you can say yes, no, or yes with conditions of approval. When it comes to the whole concept of land use development in California, we have several major tools, if you will, to deal with. The first one being the Permit Streamlining Act. The second one being the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. We also blend in there also the Subdivision Map Act. The Permit Streamlining Act basically came as a result of each jurisdiction in California doing its own thing when it comes to land use development. And at some point, the legislature said, no more. We're going to start to place conditions on applications for governments for them to say, okay, look, if you don't act within a certain reasonable period of time on a certain thing, a project will move to the next phase. And ultimately, theoretically, a project can receive automatic approval if the government fails to act in a timely manner. In my experience, that's happened maybe once or twice in 30-odd years, because a jurisdiction doesn't usually want to get an application to be approved automatically. They'll act to ensure that doesn't happen so that we can be moving forward with the project. The Permit Streamlining Act does not apply to certain projects. So, for example, if somebody wants to adopt a zoning ordinance or do a general plan amendment, those things are off the table when it comes to the PSA, Permit Streamlining Act. Maps and things of that nature, no timeline on an agency to do that. And there is no timeline under the PSA for ministerial permits, such as building permits, grading permits, things of that nature. As I said, the CEQA law is probably the one that's been talked about most. It's been in effect for 50-something years, maybe a little bit more than that. And even on the news today, I saw on the TV an article about a legislator wanting to streamline the CEQA process. If it meets certain criteria, it can be going through a process. Unlike a categorical exemption or a negative declaration or EIR, it has a special place if it's an infill project. So we'll keep an eye on those kind of things that go through the legislature this year. But you've probably heard of an EIR or a neg deck or a mitigated neg deck. Those, again, are some of the tools that we deal with as we juggle all of these different balls when it comes to land development. As I said, the State Subdivision Map Act has been in effect over 100 years. Very few folks realize that, but it was in no shape created to what we have today. It's changed quite a bit. So in your armory, just think that a tentative parcel map is for 4 lots or less. And it will then be a recorded instrument called a parcel map. When you deal with 5 lots or more, it's a tentative subdivision map, and it will be recorded as a final map. And you may have seen final maps that come in phases, that there's certain pieces of that tentative subdivision map that are actually recorded and built at a different period of time. The two types of acts that can be discussed by public bodies are legislative decisions and quasi-judicial. Basically, there's a difference there, and when it comes to legislative acts, that's where you exercise your jurisdiction. Again, we talked about general plans and also amendments to the zoning code and things of that nature. They're broad and go across the community. When it comes to quasi-judicial, those are very typically specific to a project or a site that affects not the community at large, but specific individuals and private interests. As we transition into the housing laws, probably around 200 or so bills are introduced, and we just have to be careful and obviously provide input as planners and as legislators. You've probably been to a few league meetings where you see some of these bills, and some of them are crazy, to be quite honest, and some of them make a lot of sense. And there's just no knowing from one year to the next what's going to kind of surface. So we'll talk about some of the big ones here that you've probably had some experience with. And again, as I said, we've got a lot of laws, and I've provided a few of them that are probably most relevant to the city of Antioch. I would say for the most part, the landscape of housing laws changed right before COVID, to be honest. So some of the laws that we're dealing with predate COVID. They go back to the 80s. And the Housing Accountability Act is probably is the oldest, let's say. But as I said earlier tonight, the Housing Crisis Act is the one that introduced us to the world of SB 330, and whether or not a jurisdiction acts on those SB 330 is really relative to how it deals with its housing element and some of the other laws that are in play. We'll talk about those. So I provided a summary of what each one of those are. I won't go into each one of them, but clearly some of the usual suspects, if you will, are really SB 9, which talks about how land can be developed. I think realtors thought that was going to be the silver bullet, golden bullet, I'm not quite sure which one it was, a bullet that basically allowed unlimited housing in the state of California. It's not matured out to be that way. And as I get further into the presentation, we'll talk about, well, actually, I'll do it now. So SB 9, for example, is a law that took away the tentative parcel map process. Remember I talked about 4 lots or less? That was where you mature it to a parcel map. What it's basically done, SB 9, is say for parcels of a certain size in a certain location, whatever, anything you've got the zoning that's zone residential, you can subdivide that property. But guess what, folks? It's ministerial now. There is no ability to say no. If it meets certain criteria, it goes straight to the parcel map. And so there is no discretion. So what it did was it said to jurisdictions, these are the rules, adopt your own rules, but don't violate what we said as a state. Very few SB 9 lots get approved each year, but it does happen. And there's a very niche market for that. I think the primary reason that they don't get built is because of the cost. It's not that much different from going through a tentative parcel map and recording anyway, but people can avail themselves to that particular state law. When it comes to other laws, specifically SB 330 and SB 35, these are mechanisms that the state has provided for local agencies and the development community to then streamline, if you will, a ministerial process that was otherwise discretionary. So what that means is jurisdictions cannot create a process that unduly restricts the ability to build housing. Oh, and by the way, if you have objective design standards, then somebody who submits an application basically can vest their interest in a project, and then as long as you have this checklist, you can comply and they can build it without you being able to say, no, you can't do that. So in the case of SB 330, a lot of jurisdictions created their own objective design standards, and that is what the city of Antioch has done in 3 specific cases for single family and missing middle. You've also done the commercial infill housing and multifamily. So you've actually exercised your discretion by telling the community what you want. We only want yellow doors. Okay, in this application, is there a yellow door? Yes. And I'm using that as an example, by the way. That's not what you're objecting. You deal with site planning, elevations, landscaping, open space, site lighting, signage. You've set your standard, and that's what now must be met with. So a developer can now come in and say, check, 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 I've done all those things you want, now you got to approve it. And that's basically the lay of the landscape now, where the state has said, if you don't have objective standards, you're basically screwed as a jurisdiction because they're coming in. Now, there's one piece of law that Derek can address too, and that's called a builder's remedy. What happens under housing element law is such that if you do not have a compliant or a certified housing element, a developer can come in and build under the general plan and zoning, regardless of what you say in those two documents. They can just go ahead and build what they want because you don't have it from the time, at the time that they submit the application. The good news is the city of Antioch has its standards out there. So developers can't really get there into that builder's remedy world where they can build whatever they want. And so it's very important to have a general plan and zoning consistent with one another and to have it. So there's a concept called, the concept of validity, that it's presumed that your general plan and your housing element are presumed to be valid. So if you've got a certified element, you're good to go. And fortunately, in 2023, that's what your city council did, is get that HCD certification. So when I talk about previously about the Housing Accountability Act, that puts limits on a government's ability to deny or reduce even the density of a project. If somebody comes in with the density consistent with the general plan, we shall approve. And so again, 330 does the same thing. It kind of fuses in with the Housing Accountability Act and other zoning laws, some of which are the Permit Streamlining Act. The process I want to go through SB 330 just for a moment, because what that does is establishes, again, I talked about objective design standards, but it also talks about the ability of a jurisdiction to have a certain number of public hearings or public meetings, if you will, to be a 5. What it does, it creates an application process where a developer can submit an application, and it's got to come up with everything on a checklist that's been prescribed by the city and the state. But basically what it does is it vests their application so that the laws that are in effect at the time of their application submittal, that's the rules. You can't change rules afterwards and have it applicable to this project. The good news is that they've got 180 days to then perfect that application with a regular application. If the 180 days expires, it starts all over again. So if you do change your laws and they choose not to submit within 180 days, they get to play with a new set of rules if you've changed them. The Housing Crisis Act provides the following. I won't go reach all of those things. But again, I think I mentioned it earlier when it came to the question of growth caps or growth measures or funky things that jurisdictions want to do. Those things are off the table. And that would also include any kind of moratorium that you could have and the like. I'm not quite sure where development agreements would come in. That might be a good question for Derek later on. So again, we've got a lot of state housing laws. Each one, this is just describing what the builder's remedy is. Again, the main effect is that you don't want to be in a situation where a project can be forced. Believe it or not, there's still jurisdictions out there. I would say about 80% of communities in California have got their housing elements certified. And again, we're 2 years into the 8-year cycle already, so I'm not quite sure where they're at. And again, as I mentioned earlier, Huntington Beach, their suit was just perfected, I guess, or concluded last summer. I'm not sure where they are recently, but local agencies, they may have discretion or have some discretion, but when it comes to the Housing Accountability Act, we must approve a project if it complies with all of the objective rules in our general plan and our zoning. And again, the 3 criteria or 3 separate things that you've adopted all nest in our zoning code. So we do have those things there. We touched on it in the IHO about density bonuses. We do have density bonus provisions. It does receive density bonuses and HA are compatible with one another. In my experience, I've maybe done in the last 5 or 6 years, I've come across maybe about a dozen projects where density bonuses are available. And then you get into the question of waivers and concessions. And what that means is very simply, in order to get, if a developer comes in with a density bonus project, we either have to reduce parking, or give something else away that ordinarily we wouldn't, that would be sacrosanct, that's in our municipal code. And so density bonus law does provide some concessions, and that all has to be done consistent with the general plan and the zoning code. I won't go into protections under the Housing Accountability Act, but we're ready to take on any questions or answers, try to provide answers as best as we can. We have staff also available. When it comes to specific projects in Antioch, Zoe will be able to get to the bottom of those with you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly, thank you for that presentation. That was terribly exciting. I could tell a lot of people were enthralled with that description of what you were going through, so thank you. Do we have any public comment on this before we jump into questions?
Yes, we do. We have Melissa Case, and then we have Leslie May and Andrew Becker.
I just have questions, and it's relating to Summersville Town Center, which is the CIH overlay, which I just, assuming it's SB 330. And some of those things that you were talking about are on the real estate exam, especially parcel maps. So here's my questions. Can the previously approved project of over 700 units, which is yet to begin construction, be renegotiated to better align with Antioch's current needs and priorities, like economic development and mixed use? How will the city address the lack of nearby economic infrastructure, such as shopping centers, schools, to support this development? There's 1,300 homes. I emailed you all. There's 1,300 homes, or 1,300 units coming in, in D4, D2 border off of Summersville. So I'm speaking currently to that. Is the current council evaluating whether this project truly meets CEQA standards? And I don't really know a lot about CEQA. I've just been trying to read up on it, particularly regarding its community impacts. Could the scale of these projects overwhelm local traffic and school capacity? And if so, are there mitigation plans in place? And while some might argue that Antioch schools have low enrollment right now and can absorb more students, isn't it true that many of these schools are also low performing and subject to California's open enrollment laws, which allow parents to transfer their children to higher performing schools in other districts? Doesn't this really suggest that the local capacity may not be available to support such a large developments? Thanks.
Next speaker is Leslie May, followed by Andrew Becker.
Hello. I was trying to keep up, but you were moving those slides so fast. I saw some quasi something. I was trying to write it down. But I have a question. So there's some land that I want to purchase. It's not development land. I want to do something else with the land, which is an urban garden. But there would be a house, a manufactured home that would be on the lot, because that would be the groundskeeper where they are watching everything, vegetables, all that stuff that's big. Would that fall under this land use housing? Because it's just one house. I saw something that said below 5 or below, so I wasn't sure. Now, I will be emailing you to make an appointment to come see you. But I just wanted to put that out and find out, would that be considered in what you're discussing tonight, putting up one house and say a barn, kind of like a barn, but modern day barn. Thank you.
Andrew Becker.
Thank you. So appreciate staff's time with the presentation. Definitely a lot of housing laws that take away local control. And I'll give you a snapshot of kind of a hypothetical here in the city of Antioch. you have a property right now on the market over off of Christina Court. That's a 11,000 square foot lot, single family, infill with no home on it, and has about 2,400 to 3,300 square foot homes adjacent on each side and across the street. And this property is off of Garrow Drive. SB 1123 and SB 684 say that a developer can purchase that lot. They can come in and they could take that 10,000 roughly square foot lot and they can subdivide it down to up to 8 single family lots at 1,200 square feet a lot. And then they can build on those individual lots single family homes up to 1,750 square feet on average with 0-foot setbacks. And this doesn't come before you as a council or your planning commission body. Notice is not sent out to the neighbors. And the project is approved through that state legislation, as long as it meets the objective design standards that the city has set forth. Objective design standards, not discretionary. Okay, now, I could say that I'm a proponent for housing, and I am. And I might support a development there if Hope Solutions was coming and saying, we want to put 4 tiny homes in there that are affordable and serve the community's needs. But I can also tell you as a developer and a consultant that since SB 1123 has come out and takes effect July 1st of 2025, I've had 3 individual developers reach out to me to look at SB 1123 infill projects in Oakley, one in Antioch, and one out in Half Moon Bay. So you are looking at losing control here locally, and it is being taken away. And this is why it's very important that you take the time as an agency to fully understand what these laws are, so that with the control you do have through your zoning and planning, you can adequately respond and react. Thank you.
I don't have any other people wishing to comment.
All right, thank you. Council, questions, comments? Yes, Councilmember Freitas.
So I realize that some of the audience may think, gee, this is kind of a boring subject, but it actually defines the quality of life that we have in our community. These are very, very important discussions that we are having. And it's one of the items that the public discusses with the mayor and other members of the city council. Why did you guys ever approve that? That is so ugly. It doesn't meet, you know, good standards of design and things of that sort. And so while this may seem a little boring, let me tell you, the impact is extraordinary to our quality of life. And so since getting elected, since November 5, I have been very concerned and have raised this issue again and again and again. The discretion that used to reside with the mayor and the city council has been eroded and continues to be eroded. And so my question to both of you gentlemen is, what can the city do to have some discretion, proactive? While I understand procedurally, legally, there are things that if you follow and you comply, that it's going to be approved. But I'm concerned about putting standards in that, you know, gives the council some discretion or at least information about what is happening. And I know that's an extra step, and as you, Mr. Torr, went through, I do have questions about development agreements. I am very curious about where they fit in this overall process, and we probably should have some explanation about what development agreements are all about. But the other is, you talk about objective design standards, that if the city does not have them, a developer comes in, developer can pretty much do what the developer wants to do. So from my perspective, it would behoove the city council and the city to make sure that we have immediately objective design standards that will require the developer to develop what we believe are in our best interests. So do we have objective design standards today?
So, yeah, if I can just kind of start that off by saying the discretion that you have or is with the city has been shifted from the back end of a project to the front end. So what the legislature has said is, if you like yellow doors only, tell them up front in the application process that you only do houses with yellow doors. Don't wait for them to present pink doors. Take them through a public hearing process and deny it because they've not got yellow doors. That's basically what they've done. So what they've said is, exercise your discretion, pick the color of a door that you want, tell them that that's what you want. And if they bring a project in with that standard, what have you got to look at? What's worth debating? Can you change your mind to pink? That's the process that we're talking about here is, no, the landscape has changed. You've got to decide what it is you want in your objective design sense. So that's the short answer. The longer answer is simply, yes, you do have objective design standards. Your staff has provided those to you in certain areas. So Zoe can get into more detail as to the specific sites. So for example, on commercial properties that will never develop as commercial, you have an overlay that's going to allow you to do multifamily housing there. Oh, and by the way, we've got setbacks, we've got height restrictions, we've got percentage of floor area ratios and the like. Your city council has gone ahead and do that. So would you mind coming up and just talking about the 3 different sets of objective design standards? Because I know it goes back to 2022 and as recently as 2024.
Yeah, so there's 3 sets, as Mr. Storer said. So we have the commercial infill housing overlay. That was approved in early 2022. That was a separate process that included an overlay of 10 commercially zoned sites in the city. An overlay zone, I guess I'll jump in with some legal information here. The base zoning stays, so that base commercial zoning stays, but the overlay zone overlays on top as another layer and provides that added option of residential development, and that is ministerial. So that's right. You've did the objective design standards up front with what you want to see. So that is in 10 sites across the city. And then we have our single family objective design standards. And we used to have residential standards, but they weren't objective. So we really took those and changed like should into shall. So you shall build this. Instead of we'd like it, maybe you did this. Now it's shall. There's no discussion about what that is. And that's where the objective part comes in. And then finally we have the multifamily where we did something similar. And then mixed in with a single family is the missing middle, which are like the triplexes and fourplexes.
So Mr. Mayor, I could not tell you, I'm sure any member of council can tell you, what these design standards are. And so I strongly recommend, as soon as the budget is approved, that we have a study session and we really get into some of the nitty-gritty about designs and ask ourselves, what do we want in our community? What kind of design, architectural, color, things of that sort? I mean, it's great that we have it, but if it's not known by the city council, it's really useless. And so I would strongly recommend, hope maybe even in July, to have truly a study session, 3 or 4 hours, and start to get into nitty-gritty and ask ourselves, is this what we want our community to look like?
You and I may be the only ones on the planet who would really love that for 4 or 5 hours on any given day, but you know what? We're ready for it. If I could just say, for the public's benefit too, these things are in our municipal code, right? So we've got those available, or at least on our website.
So the objective standards themselves, the document is on our website under Design Antioch Planning. And then you can go to Design Review and see the objective standards. We also have a separate CIH page, the commercial infill housing page that goes over that entire program. I'll also say that that was grant funded and worked with PlaceWorks, who you saw earlier, on these objective design standards and the CIH project as a whole. And then separate standards such as heights, setbacks, those are in our municipal code, and that's available online as well. But yes, all our objective design standards are on our website, and project applicants always refer to them. And then separately, we have, they're not objective, but for a long time now, we've had commercial design guidelines as well.
And that's, Zoe, if you just stay there in case there's a follow-up question. And that's the difference between an objective standard and a design guideline. And so before, many jurisdictions through their design review process would have guidelines saying, we want houses with doors on the front and they can be pastels. And I'm using again the analogy here. Well, the state is saying, no, you got to tell them what color you want on those doors. And when I say that, I'm talking about setbacks, height restrictions, placement of the front of a building regarding the side yard setbacks, things of that nature. And so there is a very distinct difference between a guideline and a standard. So we're happy to work with the city manager in scheduling that when the time is available to us all. You're gonna have a busy next month for sure, so I know we can't do that.
Well, and it is tedious, and I know it's probably a solution for insomnia. But, it is critically important because it's very hard as elected or appointed officials to explain to a member of the public when they're just chastising us, how could you ever let this get approved? And they're not going to accept, well, the state has intervened and, we're following, central planning. It just doesn't work. Now, Mr. Cole, what are development agreements and how do they fit now? I'm a little confused.
Well, that's a difficult question because development agreements are inherently discretionary and they're not mandated. So if the developer is going to ask for a development agreement, they're subjecting themselves to potential discretion on our part, and we are able to leverage more in response to giving the developer longer terms. So if we give the developer 10 years, 15 years, we give them long terms, then we can ask for more community benefits, which sometimes can mean a variety of different forms of compensation, but also other policies that we want that are more discretionary. So my understanding is these developers are typically coming in and they're doing maps, or they're doing the approvals under this myriad of affordable housing. And there's a slide that I think our interim community development director had. I think they're following those laws and not asking for development agreements.
And if I can just add to that, Derek, and again, stop me if I'm practicing without a license, but what it does is they're bilateral agreements. And so the public agency needs to get something that it ordinarily wouldn't, and conversely, the developer. They want predictability. We want predictability so we can phase and time infrastructure. There's a benefit there. But again, I think the most salient point that I heard was that they're not obligatory. And more often than not now, developers don't need DAs because they've got advanced housing law on their side. We would want them only because we want to be able to get something ordinarily that we wouldn't get. And that's where the discretion comes in.
Yeah, I think that's very unfortunate because in development agreements, we ask for community enhancements, community, projects and things of that sort. If that is phased out or, becomes non-existent, that's not good news for our community.
So there's, at least as I see it, this is just my history, not any land use historian, but I started practicing law in 1999, and I started out as a land use attorney, not a municipal attorney. And at that time, development agreements were everything. You'd get a map, you'd get a rezone, you'd get a general plan, and then you'd ask for a development agreement. And then the Great Recession hit. So, from in the 90s and the first part of this century, those were the go-go days. Those were the old days, so to speak, of development. And then after the Great Recession, it took a while to catch up. I always think about 2011, 2012, when I started seeing more maps, but they weren't necessarily new developments. They were a lot of amendments to the old developments. So there was a whole host of entitlements that came in about the first part of the century, 2000 to 2008. There were a lot of developments. And then the Great Recession really changed the economics of development. And so after the economy picked up in the last decade, the 2010s, a lot of the developers were restoring those old maps. And so in city government, as I've seen, I saw it here in my stints as your interim, and as well as the next door city where I've been city attorney, a lot of the work in the 2010s was on amending those old and extending those old development agreements and giving them 10, 15, 20-year extensions. So that was the last decade. In the current decade, we are in what I would call legislative control. It's my term, not anyone else's. And it's the fight for home rule versus state rule. And unfortunately now, or fortunately, depending on where you sit, the state is winning. And so I think we're in a different era now. And unfortunately, I think the era of discretion in development agreements, this is just me saying what I think is true, not that I agree with this per se. I think that era is mostly over. And we do have a housing crisis, and the legislature, when I go to the city attorney's conference, or when I'm on the municipal law handbook committee that we have, that we have a chapter on housing. It has to be rewritten every year, because every year the legislature changes, and it's almost, I can't keep up with it. So you have housing attorneys who this is all they do, and every year they have to change up. So we're going to have a whole host of new laws this year probably, and then the people in my field are going to have to write all the blogs and all the stuff that you see on the internet, and then our staff are going to have to do all these new ordinances and all these new policies. But I'm just going to be the realist here. That's the era we're in. That's the era we're going to be in, and maybe some people like that, maybe some people don't, but that's just how it's going to be. I wish I could tell you otherwise, but it's sort of a long-winded summary of what I've seen in my career.
No, I think you're accurate, and one of the reasons why cities become incorporated because they want local control. And local control is evaporating right before our eyes because it seems to be boring and, tedious and, oh my God, I don't want to be involved in this. If people simply understood how critically important it is to the character of a city. So I'm willing to put the time in. On one of your overheads, you have the Housing Crisis Act provides the following. Generally, with specified exceptions, cannot change the general plan land use designation. We last approved our general plan in 2003. So are we happy with that plan? Or I suspect, 22 actually, more like 25 because it took 3 years to develop. 25 years have passed, and we, I think, would have a lot of things. Is that it for me? I can't talk anymore. Okay. I think that we, desperately need to go back and revisit with all this new legislation.
Well, and again, building off of my last comments, and you're probably going to be kicking me out of here because I'm telling you all the bad news. The way, ultimately, if you look at the 30,000-foot level that our interim community development director started at, the linchpin of all of these laws is the residential designation. So if you have in your general plan or your zoning residential designations, those are basically set in stone now. And so as you point out, Councilmember Freitas, our general plan was adopted 23 years ago. And so then SB 330 came into effect in 2018. That was also around the time of the LABD initiative, which had issues with that. I think Councilmember Wilson was on the council. Our mayor was then our city manager. So that was that era. And so basically, you really can't take without residential designations, you can only add to them. I mean, that's a grossly oversimplified way, but if you're residential now, you're residential, and you're gonna basically stay residential, and we can't change that. And the problem is, if it's residential, we can't give ourselves discretion when the state has taken that away. So what we couldn't do is convert from residential to some other type of use at this point. Rarely. I mean, it'd be hard. So this is kind of where we are.
Councilmember Freitas, do you want to ask a question?
Oh, I didn't know if Councilmember Freitas was finished.
I just one other one. Again, on the same overhead, no growth caps or controls that limit or cap the number of land use approvals or permits for housing approvals or construction, except under certain provisions. What are the provisions? I'm sorry, Dominique.
I apologize. If you read the planning, so the interesting thing, I go back to my history. In 1999, when I started practicing land use law, we had the planning and zoning law. I mean, it was complex then, but it was mostly readable. If you look at it now, it has the ease and feel and enjoyment as the Internal Revenue Code. I mean, it really, if you start reading, you have these subdivisions, we call subdivisions or subsections. They go to Z, and then they have, 10 numbers, and then they have 10 Roman numerals. So the problem is trying to remember all of this stuff. But there are some exceptions, but they're very limited.
Just so happens.
Okay. He has them.
The overarching goal is if there's a public health and safety issue, that trumps everything as far as the exceptions go. But for example, it depends on whether you also have a certified element or not. So if you don't have a certified element, another set of rules, the labyrinth continues. And so almost on a yearly, monthly basis, we have to say, where does it go? How does the ball get to the end of the cube, at the bottom of the cube, and pop out? The other things are, again, it ties into whether you're RENA compliant, and that's a constantly changing thing. And each year when we report to the state, that changes, based on what we've done over the past year. But again, I guess the public health and safety concept is the one exception that basically takes all the trump.
The two words, each year. It used to be we could approve things and they would last for 5 or 10 years. But I think those days are long gone. And I think, frankly, as the city manager, we almost have to institutionalize a procedure on an annual basis on what changes or additions or modifications need to take place. Otherwise, we will lose complete control of our own destiny.
Again, going back to the discretion that we do have the ability to modify our general plan. There are no timelines on anything in a general plan other than thou shalt change the housing element every 5 or 8 years, depending on what cycle you're in and what relationship you have with HCD and how you set it up. And so, at least with the city of Antioch, we can change our general plan during the RENA period that we're in. Now the question then is, do you change all of the yellow on your zoning map or your designations on your general plan and change that to greater densities? Or do you then say, no, I want more yellow? Change all of the brown to yellow, change all of the red to yellow. That will be a pro-housing concept, so to speak. But you do have discretion. Your land use map, if I were to venture that you took a process on to modify your general plan designations, it wouldn't look much, it would look much the same as what you have now. I mean, unless you just change things around, I just don't see that changing. But it hasn't been looked at as a community, yes. One thing you can do is we actually do have an RFP out right now to try to figure out if there's an opportunity for us to spend the money we've collected, to spend it on updating our general plan. Your council can just say, hey, look, we don't want to touch the land use element. We only want to focus on circulation or parks and recreation and all of those different elements. But it's been long overdue. I've worked in communities that do it every 10 years.
Councilmember Wilson?
Our city attorney just talked about this new era that sounds very dismal. It doesn't sound like we have much say in it. Now I understand we were talking about this earlier today about how cities are voting more local control. How do we, without seeming like we're always trying to catch up to whatever the state, because state changes, every time there's an election cycle, every 2 years or every 4 years for the state senate. We just went through a huge turnover on the state side. How do we keep up with all the changes that are going on up in Sacramento to be able to fight for what we need and what we want for our city? I mean, I'm hearing dismal, but I'm not hearing like, well, this is how we can stay ahead, or this is how we can keep up, and this is how we can fight to keep our voice.
So one of the things before you shoot the messenger, when you're going to shoot,
No, I'm not shooting
I'll
the
just move
messenger,
out
I'm
of the
just
way
saying.
just a little bit. One of the things in my profession, I'm sure Derek does it too, is we do get on these policy committees at the league, and you can also join those as the elected officials.
I have to stop you. I was on one of those policy
Yeah.
committees, and it was just very disappointing. So there's not a lot of power in those committees.
But would you rather be there than not be there to have an influence over what comes out to the cities? And that's what I'm saying. When you've got 200 housing bills coming at you, the American Planning Association is heavily involved, the City Managers Association, they're all involved. You can choose to not be a part of that process because it's so disappointing, but what's the alternative? And so you wait to see what you're given, or you try to influence what you're doing. And there's strength in numbers. I've always believed in that. I was on the Environmental Policy Committee for 4 years in Sacramento. It's a good thing to be able to get in there and help shape the legislation and then go do your lobbying. It's a very important thing. Derek?
I'm going to strike a more pessimistic note, and I say that I'm extremely involved in the city attorney's department of the League of California Cities, and I wouldn't be the same person if I wasn't. So I'm immensely proud of being part of that organization. What I will say though is just a blunt statement, call it realpolitik. The public agencies don't seem to hold the cards in the state. You guys are elected officials, you're politicians, you may be part of a political party, you may know members of the legislature or are friends with them, so you're in a better position to understand that than I am. But I'm just being a little bit of a cynic and saying that the forces that push housing laws and take away discretion are winning and are likely to continue winning. And so what I think the best you can do is just to try to, when these laws come out, try to get some small wins. I don't think you're ever going to get a big win.
Right.
I just don't. And again, you guys understand politics better than I do. But I've been watching this for years, and I've been hearing the same things. And believe me, I have heard, local control appeals going back all the way to when in 2000, when I was first a lawyer. So it's not, the idea of local control being taken away has not, it's not something that's new. We lost redevelopment agencies. That was
huge.
and that, and the league fought a valiant, very good fight on that. And, we got dissolution and that. So I'm just going to be a pessimist. If I'm going to make a recommendation and step outside of my role as city attorney, is I'm not saying you have to embrace it, but accept it. And then staff and I, or your new city attorney, whoever, staff, your attorneys can come up with a plan to maximize what we can do. And I think Councilmember Freitas is correct. We need to take a deep dive, look at, we did develop policies back in 2022, and our Ms. Meredith has talked to us about that. But I think we have a chance to really take a deeper dive, because again, this is the era we're in, and it's the era we're going to be in. So my recommendation is not to embrace it, but to accept it.
Okay, and then my next question is my original question until you talked about this depressing new era, are green empowerment zones. I mean, how are we looking, how is that kind of embedding itself in? And I think that's an area we can take advantage of, but, I just want to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, there's been a lot of tools over the years coming either from a federal or state. It's an empowerment zone. usually related to fiscal policy. We can certainly take a look at that, but I think the request to do a deeper dive into what the 2022, 2023 is where you get the bang for your buck as far as local discretion goes. I'm not quite sure whether it's a green zone or whatever the zones are. There's typically a lot of economic development and programs that are out there at the statewide level. Does the rubber hit the road? Not at the local level as much as the local implementation. I'm very impressed with how Antioch got on board quickly. The 2022 stuff was prior to your housing element adoption. So you got ahead of the game getting that stuff done before the laws came into effect. And so you told very clearly, told the development community, this is what we want to do, and we're coming down with more standards. I would say 9 out of 10 jurisdictions have just sat on multifamily design guidelines, design standards, as opposed to going the extra steps that the city has done. So hats off to the city of Antioch.
Thank you.
All I was going to add was, as you had stated, although it's gloomy, even when we went to DC and heard some of the messaging there, I think the same things in Sacramento. I happen to serve on the League of Cities for the East Bay, and they're aggressively writing letters and networking on some of the initiatives that are before the state now. I think it's SB 79 and SB 634, two initiatives that take away local control. And so there's definitely a network of legislators across the cities in the East Bay who are networking with Assembly and senators about some of this legislation that they're opposed to. So there's definitely some activity going on. To see how the advocacy works in our favor or not is yet to be seen. But to City Attorney Cole's comments, what you're saying is the reality of today. And that's why I think legislators are really nervous about where things are going. You know, SB 79, we had to deal with that earlier when it talks to housing density around transit. There's just a lot of movement with state control taking away local government's ability to decide. And so that's happening in real time.
An observation, you guys are gonna really think I'm a terrible person, but most of the, I think, I could be wrong, most of the assembly members and senators started out as city council members or county supervisors. So you would think they cut their teeth in local politics and would go up and they'd bring the perspective of local politics. But I will tell you that that's not, it's like they're playing for a different team and they realize they're on a different team. And I'm just being a cynic. So, but that, you know, so they take, you know, and that's just an observation that I've seen.
So I have a lot of questions, but I'm not going to ask them all because I would have tomatoes thrown at me from the audience. But the CIH overlay, the commercial infill housing overlay, there's 10 sites. And Zoe, we spoke about this earlier, but I'd like to see a map of that so we can see where those are and how many units or what the designation is, how many units we're talking about, how many of them are committed to projects already. I think that's something that we're hearing about as council without having an idea of what they are.
Yeah, it's on our website, but I can definitely send that map out to you all and then give you a status update of all the projects and the sites.
So by virtue of having these overlays, are we committing ourselves now to those residential lots under the state's requirements?
Yeah, so there's 10 specific sites. So remember Zoe mentioned you have base zoning. So this is like a combining or an overlay that sits on top, and a person may choose to go through that, avail itself to that, or it can just build out at the base zoning. As it relates to the multifamily, and then as one document, and then the single family with the missing middle piece, yeah, we're committed. We're pretty much.
So if somebody wants to come in and do a commercial project on that project that has the overlay, they can still do the commercial project
Correct.
without penalizing us?
Correct.
Okay.
That's your base zoning, yes.
That's why we developed the CIH as we did, is it allows commercial redevelopment of these sites, it allows mixed use development of these sites, and it allows residential development of these sites. So it's not So it's a way to try and revitalize certain areas of town. And also the sites, have been vacant or underutilized. So this was a project we did. It was approved in 2022, but it was a multi-year project before that.
Offhand, do you know how many of the 10 locations are committed to projects currently?
You're familiar with the Lone Tree Retail project that you approved recently. So behind that, as you know, is housing. So that is they're finished with all the reviews, but they need to pull building permits. The Buchanan Crossing site, so the vacant parcels of Buchanan Crossings project, that has a submittal. Hillcrest Summit at Hillcrest and Shattuck, near the BART station, that has a submittal. And then Summersville Town Center, the mall, also has a submittal.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds to me like the key to what we're talking about here is our objective design standards. So to the extent that we understand what those are, I'm not sure the council currently does, and then we can make changes to those in accordance with our desires, correct? We have that authority?
Yeah, that is correct. But again, what comes into play, again, defer to Derek, if a developer's coming in, they vest
Under the current rules.
of the law at that point.
Sure.
But you certainly have discretion to amend your objective design standards, yes.
Okay, because I think that's important, because when I think of commercial design standards, I don't know how they address the public works side of infrastructure and widening and all of that, and that usually is very complicated, or can be, and so, God bless you. And so I just think it's important for us to understand if we're missing anything with the current standards or not.
And I think that would be a separate discussion altogether than the one that we talked about coming back. So, I mean, it depends on which ball you want to juggle at which particular time, right? So, again.
Well, I guess I just want to make sure that we aren't missing something by virtue of not having everything in place that we can have in place, being that we don't have as much discretion as we used to.
What I can do is work with the city manager and schedule another afternoon or whatever it is to go over those 3 particular documents, because then we can determine, do we like the height standard? Do we like the different things with site design, especially infrastructure? I think that's the critical piece, because if you say you want a certain distance for an arterial street, by golly, that's what it's going to be, because you've already told the world that's what you want, or setbacks, or things of that nature, or densities. And I think, again, floor area ratio is an important thing, especially as you transition that into your commercial infill housing overlay.
Sure, and the standards may be fine, but if they're not, we definitely want to tweak them as quickly as possible. The other question I have, and then I'll just finish with this, if a project gets approved under the SB 330, say, and it has a 2-year time limit on it, by virtue of that, I'm using that as an example. If that 2-year limit expires, do they come back again under the new state laws and our whatever our current rules are at the time, and start over again with that?
I'll have to admit, I'm not familiar with a 2-year timeline.
I'm just using that example.
Well, actually, I don't think there is a timeline. That's probably one of the things that I'm.
So their approvals in perpetuity?
Right, and what that does is it creates uncertainty to a public agency to have these multiple entitlements out there. When I say multiple, not on one project, but a variety of development projects that are at various stages of their evolution, and as a public agency, it becomes very difficult. I don't think Antioch's in that boat right yet. We haven't got a plethora of projects where we don't know which one's going to surface at any one particular time. But it does raise the question as to how you time it. The only thing I can think of is if it's tied to a map, then yeah, they've got a certain amount of time on a tentative map. You're familiar with those. There may be a 2-year time limit under our ordinance, but then they can also come in and beg, ask, whichever word you want to use, for extensions as well. But at least we're at the table with them.
But I believe the answer, though, is the extensions under the MAP Act only goes, 5-6 years or so. So without the development agreement piece, where you have the discretion, you're not going to get those long periods. So I think there is ultimately a cap if someone gets entitlements, but they don't actually final their map.
Sure, so if we don't get a DA up front, if they get close to expiring, that's where they may come back and revisit it, and so.
Correct.
Well, those extensions too, by the way, and this is again nerding out, but it's the devil's in the details. You may recall, some of us in the profession, that the governor gave statutory extensions to tentative maps. And I have one client that went from 2005 to 2017 through virtue of extensions that were governor-related, in addition to those that you can exercise under the MAP Act. So I would say a DA is a good thing for us to do, but there's got to be benefit to the public agency.
During the Great Recession, there were, I mean, they were extended for about 10 years.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would just suggest to the city manager, city attorney, and community development, public works, that you take a look at this. I do think it is urgent, you know, and at least give us a roadmap of how to give ourselves as much power and discretion as we possibly can. And with that, some mechanism on an annual basis that we will institutionalize this to take review, so that we really try to protect ourselves as much as possible.
All right, thank you. Any more comments or questions from council? So I think the direction is that we want to come back after the budget's adopted, July, August, something like that, as soon as possible, so we can take a deeper dive into this in a study session. So thank you. All right, moving on to item number 4, consent calendar. Do we have any additional items to be pulled or any public comments on the consent calendar?
We have public comment for item H.
Item H, any other items for the council?
Did we pull?
We pulled N, I believe, and we've already acted on that.
On N? Yes.
You already pulled it.
We pulled.
Yes.
Move, consent calendar.
Except for item H
Except for item H.
and N. All right, we have a motion to approve the consent calendar except for
Second.
items H and N. Second, please cast your votes.
Motion to approve consent calendar except for item H carries 4-0.
All right, item H, consideration of bids for pavement plugs and leveling courses at various locations, project PW 709-2. City Manager Scott, or
Thanks so much. I'm calling Director Bunting up here.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. So the item before you is the consideration of bids for our pavement plugs and leveling courses project. Staff's recommendation is to reject the bid of JV Lucas Paving as they were non-responsive and award the construction agreement to Consolidated Engineering. So on May 6th of 2025, 5 bids were received for the pavement plug and leveling course project. The project consists of cold planing existing roadway sections, installing asphalt concrete plugs, and leveling courses at various locations within the city. Additional work on this project includes adjusting utilities to grade, installing traffic striping, pavement markers, pavement markings, traffic control, and water pollution control. The apparent low bid for the project was JV Lucas Paving in the amount of $2,182,500. So the contract documents and plans section of the notice inviting bids of the project's special provisions states that all bidders must purchase a complete set of contract documents from BP Express Reprographics in order to be considered responsive. JV Lucas Paving did not purchase a complete set of contract documents from BP Express Reproductions. Due to JV Lucas's paving failure to meet the requirements of purchasing a complete set of bid documents from BP Express Reprographics, staff recommends deeming JV Lucas's pavement bid as non-responsive, rejecting their bid for this project. Staff recommends awarding the project to the lowest responsible bidder, Consolidated Engineering, in the amount of $2,189,924. Consolidated Engineering's bid was checked and found to be without errors or omissions. I'd be happy to answer any comments you might have.
all right, public comment on this item, please.
Yes, Anthony Perez.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to come up here and plead my case to you guys. So I'm Anthony, owner of JV Lucas Paving. So we did submit the lowest bid, and I can see where the city is saying that we were non-responsive. But when you look farther into it, your guys' bid packet clearly says bidders must attend a mandatory meeting in bold, which is mandatory. When it comes down to the documents, first it says the contract documents may be obtained. Go down to the next sentence, the documents may be obtained by the city of Antioch or BPX. It doesn't go down to the end where it says they must. So as we read it, we're seeing may, so may probably trumps must. Also, we did purchase them through BPX. Bay Area Builders Exchange purchased them through BPX. We are a subscription based to Bay Area Builders Exchange. So we got them indirectly from BPX. It does not say in here if it needs to be directly or indirectly, but we did require the plans from BPX. Also, the bid protest from Consolidated, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but they referenced the wrong project. So they're not clear in their protest which project they're even protesting. So to me, we have the lowest bid. We had the bond, we had everything in line. And this is very confusing for all bidders. And again, where it says, where the city is clear where they want it mandatory, they use it in big, bold letters. And we were at the mandatory meeting. We're on the list. And again, it goes to may be obtained, and then to must be obtained. So which one is it? And we did obtain them, but like what I said, indirectly versus directly, which it doesn't state. And also, it doesn't give you a timeline when you need to obtain them. So we did purchase them after the bid date, but there's no timeline. If there's something that's so mandatory, it should be, there's a mandatory pre-bid in bold with the time, but there's nothing on when you need to purchase those plans. Just like in other cities, sometimes we'll say, oh, you need this, but 5 days after the bid's opened. But there's nothing regarding that. So therefore, we would like to see JV Lucas be the responsible bidder on this project.
All right, thank you.
Is there anything I can answer from you guys, or?
At this point, no, I think that's good for now.
Okay, so does the city, do they deem a bidder responsive or non-responsive today, or what's the next step?
I think we're gonna have a discussion right now about that, and
Okay.
You'll be able to.
Okay,
hear.
thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, any other public comment?
Andrew Becker.
Thank you. I don't want to draw things out tonight, but you know, I felt called to speak. As a community member here in the city of Antioch, it's frustrating seeing a bidder come here and plead his case before council when you're going to be making a recommendation or when you're going to be approving a staff recommendation. And I don't know any of the background at all, but I would assume that the bidder reached out to the city of Antioch and disputed that response, and there might have been some sort of communication back and forth. And to me, it sounds like the bidder is coming without any sort of clarity on the situation and where they stand. And so I'm wondering, was there a conversation with city staff prior to this meeting? Were any of his concerns addressed? Was there clarity provided to him? If there was not clarity within that RFP, then respectfully, why does staff come here and just simply say they were non-responsive? Like, this shows that there was a problem in the process. And if we're really working in the spirit of two things, transparency and then bettering ourselves constantly, it is on staff to bring to council where the disconnect in the process is so that it can be addressed and that the issue doesn't come up again. Because all that happened here tonight is the community sees that there's a disconnect between these contractors and city staff, the bidder has to come to a council meeting where that item is going to be voted on to plead his case, and doesn't even know that Robert's Rules of Order dictate that you can't even really dive in specifically to his questions that he just brought you. Like, this is not the venue. This is not the time. This should have already happened. But now what we have here in public record that will be codified for all eternity is another disconnect here in the city of Antioch. And so without understanding this situation at all, but understanding the struggles that this city has had historically and understanding that RFP process here in the city of Antioch, and to some of the commenters' comments, I would request that this item be held off until this bidder's questions have been answered and those issues can be addressed. Thank you.
No. Not, sorry, it's under public comment, so. Any other comments?
Looks like Melissa's coming down.
Melissa.
What's funny is I actually texted Andrew about this and why 2 bids were denied for the process, and to see if he knew, like, the process, and he didn't know. And now the guy comes here and says, look, what's up? We should take the lowest bidder because we're, spending money probably that we shouldn't spend on the housing, and we should save it somehow. And it looks like there is a disconnect, and you should hold off the bid and actually give the other bidder a chance to come in as well. I mean, I think it's just the right thing to do, and then maybe bring back to the next meeting to revise the requirements that he pointed out. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment?
No other public comment.
No.
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 All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Excuse me, Councilmember Freitas.
Mr. Cole, I mean, what's your response? Because I'm of the opinion, because of this discussion, that it may behoove us to hold this off and have you meet with them.
Well, I don't see what the speaker is saying. I think he's being very cute with the language. It says very clearly, all bidders must purchase a complete bid set of contact documents from BPS Express Reprographics in order to be considered responsive and to receive addenda notifications. So it says that very clearly. Now, if you go up, it says attention is directed to the contract documents for complete details and bid requirements. Copies of the contract documents may be obtained by logging on to, and then it provides a website, or by calling BPX Express Reprographics, and then it provides the phone number. What that is saying is not that you may do it, it's saying this is how you get the documents. The word may is used in that situation to say, look, if you want, you're gonna go get the documents, this is where you do it. But if you go to the bottom, it says very clear, it's a shall, it's a must. And then it says these documents may be obtained at a set price of $150 plus shipping and handling. So that's just saying, this is how much it costs. This is how much you may buy these for. So when I look at this, the only reasonable construction by someone in the field is you have to have the bid set from BPS Express, and it says very clearly, in order to be considered responsive. If you're in the field of bidding on contracts, when you see the words in order to be considered responsive, you need to look at the sentence in which that appears and say, this is what I have to do. And that's not what this contractor did. So I don't think they have a case to be made. I'm happy if you want more from your staff, that's fine. Or if you want to continue this, I'm fine. But I'm looking at this language, and the construction that you just heard is not reasonable.
No.
Because, I don't think that's fair, because
Any-
this is a lot of money we're talking about.
Any other comments questions from council?
I just don't see the document that the city attorney was talking about.
What is our responsibility to award this bid? Is there a certain number of days within when we need to award this? I mean, do we need to award at this city council meeting, or?
No, it's not necessary on a timeline basis for it to be awarded tonight.
Right, thank you. I guess the other question is, was there a written protest given by this gentleman and his firm that?
By Consolidated.
Whoever-
This had nothing to do with the bid protest. This was staff, because it was a non-responsive bid. So the bid protest and what was said subsequently was taken in, but the direction, the request from staff is, per the contract documents, the bid's not responsive.
All right, thank you. Is council comfortable with making a motion?
I'll make a motion to proceed forward with this based on what our city attorney just read to us, that the language that's written into the document that was read to us gave clear direction of what needed to be done to be considered for this particular proposal to be accepted and move forward. And if that, absent of that, then I don't see any reason why we need to delay our action. That's just my thoughts. Quiet, you don't have the floor. That's my thoughts on this. So if somebody wants to give me a second, we can move to action, or at least be able to discuss it.
A motion, to have a second? Yeah, motion dies without a second. Do we have a motion to continue this item to the next council meeting for further investigation by the city attorney and? Right, we have a motion to continue this item till the next city council meeting. We have a second?
Second.
All right, motion second. Please cast your votes.
Motion to continue this item to the next city council meeting carries 4-0.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that, was that the only item on the consent calendar? Item H, that was it. All right. Moving on to the public hearing. Item number 5, proposed updates to the master fee schedule effective July 1, 2025. Madam City Manager. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor and City Council. This next item is about the master fee. Proposed updates to the master fee are being presented for consideration this evening, with many of the fees being adjusted by CPI. In light of the financial challenges the city is facing, it is more than important as ever that for the city to recover the cost of providing services to aid in our fiscal stability. And the Finance Director is here to present.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Exhibit A to the resolution that's attached outlines the master fee schedule. You will see that there's a column with the proposed fees based on adjustments either on market rate, CPI, or the engineering news cost record, and that on those sections it'll say adjusted by ENR above those. So the comments and amounts are either redlined directly in the table or off to the side, just depending on if any of the language needed to be adjusted. Departments are here to answer questions on specific fees being raised. The only one that I would like to point out that needs to be corrected is on page 16 under the marina for the covered berth. It's proposing that the rate change to $9.89, not the $9.37 foot per month. So should City Council approve increasing that fee, just acknowledging the correction from not $9.37 as marked on page 16, but $9.89. Otherwise, this is before council for discussion, and like I said, departments are available to discuss any of the fees in their representative areas. The only area that really is not touched is the animal services. That department felt that it was important to keep adoption and other rates down to encourage adoption and help clear the shelters essentially. But other than that, a majority of the fees have been increased by the CPI or other market considerations.
Do I ask a question now, or should I wait till staff?
Sure, yes.
My only question, I saw what you just referenced, but where it says live aboard fees month, it was 175 and it's going up to 281. I was just curious to how that rate came, because that's a pretty significant increase, although I understand there's a small number of residents who live in the harbor. I was just curious to how that number came, because it's about 34% of an increase for someone who's living there. That might be a difficult adjustment for them.
Yeah, I will let Public Works answer that more specifically, but I do know that they did look at the neighboring marinas and the rates that are being charged at all those facilities near us to come up with that rate. But if you need more information, I can ask the Deputy Public Works Director to come up and explain that further.
Would you like him to come up?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Well, before we get started with that, yeah, right.
Yeah, I'll open the public hearing. All right. Go ahead, Carlos, you can ask a question. And
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. So we looked at 5 neighboring marinas to get our rates. We looked at the Stockton Marina, the Pittsburgh Marina, Benicia, Vallejo, and Martinez Marinas, municipal marinas. And we saw that our rates were under the market going rates. And that's what we used to establish these current rates.
Yeah, and the reason for my question, because I had a resident call me and ask that question. You know, most of the increments, the increases are, you know, $1 to $5. You know, even when you look at the foot size of the boat, the increase is relative. It just seemed like that was a pretty significant jump for someone who is going, if they're living on their boat and they're paying the additional foot, so much per foot, and then they're also having to take into account a bump of, you know, literally $106 more, and then you're looking at electrical and other costs that go along with it. It may make it difficult for those 5 to 7 people who live there, and it'd be sad to see that we don't have possibly people living there any longer. And what that, I would think having people live there would be a positive thing, because they keeps an eye on what's going on, and they have a you know, vested interest in the harbor. Whereas if it's vacant, people can't afford there. But if the study's based on our neighboring communities, it makes sense to me. But I just needed to ask the question, because it did seem like a pretty, so we must have been really low compared to our neighbors.
So we are
going up
just
$106 per. Go ahead.
Yeah, just as so Benicia $345 a month for liveaboards, Pittsburgh Marina $281. So it's bringing them up to where we should be. And as you probably know, during the budget study session, the marina is in an operating deficit, and there's significant projects that need to happen there. And really, we've been charging way under the market rate over the years.
Yeah, I understand the importance of revenue and raising our fees and all that sort of thing. I was mainly just asking the question for the significant increase on that one particular item, because it seemed like it was out of alignment with the other price increases that I saw. And then I had one, again, resident who lives in the harbor ask me why was that such a big jump in comparison to the other price schedule increases that are written in this document. So thank you for sharing that.
All right.
So this is a concern I have. Looking on the first sentence of fiscal impact, the fee increases will ensure that the city recovers as much of the cost for providing services as possible. So in this example, it doesn't seem it's driven by what the actual cost is to the city. What we're looking at is a market rate. And so, you know, so how, as a policy consideration, how are we supposed to figure out what is appropriate? Because a little later on in the police department, for a nonprofit use of the classroom, you know, there's a fee of $63. But if you happen to be commercial, it's $112. That same hour, I suspect, the cost is the same. So again, you know, what is the philosophy of our master fee? Is it to recover costs or to generate as much revenue as we possibly can? Or a combination of both? I mean, it's unclear what the policy is for the master fee schedule.
So as far as the marina, we want to at least be able to recover the operating cost to keep the marina going and stop the subsidy as much as possible from the general fund.
Yeah, but what, as Mr. Rocha said, you know, if the fee jumps so high, we may lose half the people who are there. I'm not sure that's a benefit to us.
Well, I think the rates are still competitive. We're on the lower end of what we surveyed.
Okay.
So
Right, but
I think it's still a great deal for
it
people.
is a good deal. It is just what is the philosophy of the master fee schedule? Cost recovery, marketing. If they're both, then we need to say both. I mean, frankly, flipping on a switch in the community room, I don't know why are we subsidizing nonprofits? You know, I don't really understand the rationale there. And that's true for a lot of the master fee schedule.
Yeah, we had a comprehensive cost allocation and fee study that started in 2018, approved by council in 2019. And at that time, the way that, you know, you don't just keep those fees stagnant from that point forward, the method of increasing that is by CPI or some other adjuster that makes sense each year until you do another cost allocation and fee study. And actually, it's built into the city manager's draft budget to, again, do an update, because you should do one every, 5 to 6 years. You should get that updated. So the basis of this, although it is from 2019, essentially when it was approved, was on cost recovery, because cities aren't supposed to run on a profit basis. You know, you're not supposed to collect more than it is to do the service. So we have been adjusting, not every year, because there was a year actually during COVID that council said we're not increasing any fees. So we missed a year of CPI, even though our costs continued to go up. So that's why things are adjusted by the engineering, news, cost record, and CPI, because that's the mean to keep up with inflation and our rising costs of providing the services. There are some things absolutely that are market, and that was done with the recreation fee and pricing policy, which was also approved in 2019 by City Council as part of the cost allocation and fee study. So it is sort of a mixture, but the majority it is cost recovery. That's how cities are supposed to operate. We're not a profit business, other than the water enterprise, which is a little bit more run like a standard business.
But when members of the community ask us about these charges, our response is, well, it's just cost recovery. But it isn't. Using the community room for 1 hour, it's the same cost. Doesn't matter if it's a nonprofit or if it's a for-profit. The cost is what the cost is. So I mean, for years and years, the dogma is, oh no, we just recover the cost. Well, that's not true. I mean, we're making a profit for the for-profit businesses that use the community center.
Well, at different times throughout the years of master fee, the city council has decided essentially to subsidize, provide a benefit to the nonprofits, recognizing the nature of their business. So that's been a kind of a council policy, not that it's necessarily written, but that's how that's gotten into the master fee, because they said we want to offer a discounted rate to nonprofits. So that's how that's been built into the master fee.
Then I think in the explanation to us, that needs to be acknowledged, so that, again, transparency. If the policy decision of the council is to give nonprofits a discount, then say it. It's kind of hidden here, and that's my objection.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and we've already opened the public hearing. Do we have an opponent or a proponent or opponent to the item?
Okay. I do have a speaker card from Richard Mari, but it does not say whether or not he's speaking as a proponent or opponent. Would you like to clarify?
Opposed or?
Opponent, okay. Do we have a proponent?
I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing.
It's okay. We have a proponent.
A proponent.
Okay, then if you're a proponent, either for it.
No, he's not. He's
I
not.
have a comment card for Richard who.
So before the public comment, we'll take the proponent or opponent.
Okay, so proponent. If we have a proponent, that, no?
It doesn't vary.
Okay, opponent.
Whoever has the card.
Well, Richard has the card in. If you're speaking as opponent,
He gets 10 minutes and the
you will get 10 minutes. Yes.
Richard, the one who has the card. I was the first one. No, he has his card.
He had his card in.
He has a card.
Greetings, everybody. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk. Yeah, like I was saying at the beginning, I'm a marina tenant for like 7 years and living here for 25 years. I'm retired engineer. I spent a lot of time in Antioch. I think I'm basically the model of your Antioch Marina tenant. If you go and look at my yacht, you'll see it's like the cleanest yacht in the place. But I was surprised to see the exorbitant fee increases with very little concrete clarity on how and why these costs are being thrust upon us. And a lot of the other tenants are not available, and I sort of informally speak for a lot of them that we're really concerned that if what it is a comparison or cost equivalency of nearby marinas, then we would expect comparable amenities. And I will talk about the concerns on the security, blight, parking, and some detail on some of those topics. Recently I was confronted the marina staff with a concern about all the lean boats in the marina. I would think more than 50% of the boats are derelict boats that ex-owners have abandoned. And they're parked next to me, who's there pretty much every single day cleaning that boat and making it a model for when those people are sitting in that restaurant and they're looking down at the beautiful waterfront. What they don't want to see is what's next to me in the marina with it's a safety concern. It's a blight. It's like, wow, Antioch has the potential to be so positive. Many communities don't have the opportunities that Antioch has, but you're not capitalizing on it. By having boats that are filthy and neglected and stuff in the water in front of my boat, people shake their head. And I confronted the marina. They told me, we don't have any way to move those derelict boats. They're too big, and they're under a lien. And then every so many years, I think they did one a couple of years ago where they removed, a couple dozen boats. But it hasn't changed. There's more of these boats. So the reaction was almost within a week, the marina staff took pressure washers to clean some of that mess up. Well, then the marina staff confronts, because I say, well, thanks a lot for cleaning that, and I get reprimanded for thanks a lot. Now we got to clean all these damn boats. Like I basically caused them trouble. Not cool. And the guy, again, like my point about the restaurant patrons looking down on all that, I would expect you to have something like when I visited, like maybe I need to move to Pittsburgh Marina, which isn't far. What am I going to get for, well, with this increase, I think it would be $15 or $20 more, but what would I get for my money? I'm going to get parking where I have permits, where I can park in a spot where if loiterers aren't going to be parking in those parking spots. I'm going to get a gate key where every single dock has a different key. The marina has a matrix display of all the docks and everything. The security is outstanding. I don't mind paying your 36.5% increase if you give me something comparable. Give me some security. And I won't talk about all the trouble that we've had in Marina, fires and chaos with the parking lot. And they put barriers to try to keep some of that sideshows from happening. But you still have that entryway. I can't park there. I'm afraid to park there. If you pull into the Antioch Marina like on a Friday or Saturday, those people aren't taking walks in the park or using their sailboat. They're drinking and partying and it's not patrolled. There's no proactive security patrols. I will leave, and your best quality of tenant will leave. And you know what you're going to end up with? A failure. Because what you have are people that just give up, and you have crap boats that don't have any owner. You'll have lien processes. You won't be able to get it. You're going to have to hire services to haul those boats away. It costs money. So I really think you got to look at the flip side and look at the opportunity of being clear about what you're going to get for these fees. Parking. If you get rid of a launch ramp fee, I don't use a launch ramp, I have a slip. But if you have a $10 parking fee for the launch ramp, which is not really clear, I'm guessing that's what that $10 fee is because you're getting rid of a $5 launch fee. Instead, you're having a $10 day use fee. Well, there's plenty of my marina tenants, and me included, that when that parking lot is so full, except, and I'm not going to park by these loiterers. I'll park in that parking lot, but I ain't going to spend $10 because I'm spending hundreds of dollars myself. And the people that are parking there regularly, and I sail with these guys every day, everyone's gonna move from that $10 fee launch ramp and go into the restaurant parking lot. It's gonna further congest. I was hoping that I would see something like, here's a sticker that you can put on your car. There's signage that says, marina or restaurant tenant parking only. Have some kind of a, for restaurant patrons, they can get a validation so that, they're not going to get ticketed, or some kind of process by which they can help bring the level up and get the loiterers and the filth and garbage and drug use and alcoholism. And these people have caravans of vehicles that are being worked on. This isn't what, you look at the signage of Antioch, it's got sailboats. But you're going in the wrong way by just jacking the fee without having a real clear about what you're really going to do with it. I like dredging. I like, maintenance, but that's not my big concern. It's the parking, it's the safety and security and the blight. So thank you for listening to my rants and raves, but I would love to be able to stay at Antioch Marina and be proud and be an ambassador. And as you can see, I take pride in the city. I took the first environmental training course that Antioch City had with regards to sustaining your garbage and those high school people. I was in the program for doing that, and I want to be a representative for for the marina, and then, but this is making me look the other way, and that's a shame. Thanks a lot for listening. That's all I got.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Trezzuto?
Good evening, Council. I'm not here to talk about myself tonight, if that's hard to believe. I'm here to speak for the children of Antioch and the water park. I really love Brad, used to be our recreation director. Matter of fact, my grandson has been going through the Junior Warriors, the Junior Giants. I love all of Brad's programs. But for the last 5 years, come on you guys, let's admit it, the water park is not a water park. It's basically a pool. None of the slides have been working except for the baby slides for the last 3 years. And so it's kind of like the pool in Pittsburgh where they charge you $6 to go swimming. And now they're talking about increasing the water park fees to like, I don't know, $17, $18 or something. So I remember a bad experience I had maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I brought my grandson and a couple of his friends to the water park, you know, and it cost me almost $100 or so. And we get inside. There was no signs out in front, but we get inside. Oh, we're sorry, but the two main water slides that are, unless you're 6 and under, the only 2 water slides, they're not working. So I was a little upset, and you guys know I can get a little upset and say what's on my mind. So I went to the office and said, look, why don't you guys put a sign out in front that says, this is a water park, but our water slides aren't working unless you're 6 and under, before you put out all your money. Because, you know, there's a really nice water park in Concord. Let's talk about that, how it compares to ours, okay? The water park in Concord, it's owned by Six Flags. Okay, Six Flags has, I know you guys like to talk numbers. Six Flags has worth $8 billion. So when one of their slides, I mean, they charge a lot more than Brad did. Maybe Brad charges 16 or 18, but the water slides in Concord, they want 30 bucks. But they got 9 water slides. So even the worst I've ever seen, 2 or 3 of them are broken. The other 6 are still working. So you can, you know, you can get your money's worth. So what I'm trying to say is, why is Antioch putting so much money? Brad's been coming to you guys for years, and you never gave him enough money. And now finally, the 2 big slides, they're irreparable. They have to come out. We're still charging people to go in there. You don't see any buses of kids from other, there used to be buses in the parking lot when, after it opened, people coming from schools would bring their whole class. And I don't know how much revenue we got by that, but I'm sure as soon as they found out the slides aren't working, that none of those buses are coming anymore. So we've been losing all this revenue. Why are we running a water park? Why don't we use the money on the city? If we happen to have some extra money and we can open a water park, that would be fine. Same with the golf course. When I first came here 23 years ago, Antioch Golf Course was one of the best in California. People would, I mean, you'd have to wait an hour and a half just to tee off. There was so many people there. This is before they had internet and everything for tee times. But whoever took over the golf course, they put in these new greens, and it's kind of like putting on sponge cake. I don't know how many of you here are golfers, but it's really hard to putt on a sponge cake. And when they gave us these new greens a few years ago, they were going, oh, we're going to spend $250,000. Well, whoever they gave the money to must like run off with the money, because the golf course, I know the golf course makes a lot of money with their banquets. That's great. It's a great place for a banquet. The food is terrific. They have dances. We have a lot of events there, Lions Club. But the golf course, I mean, let's get real. The golf course sucks. You can read it on Yelp. Let's get back to the water park. Let me read you some of the Yelp reviews. This place is great for the younger kids, okay? This place is a really nice park. However, I wish they had all the water slides open. There were only 2 slides that day. This was 2 years ago. For the price, it's all right. The water isn't clean. It's more green than clear. My girls had fun, though. Call before you go. The slides are almost always not working. So please don't raise the price on the water park. Please, we really just have a pool. Please lower the price so we can have everybody come swim for maybe $5 or $10 like they do in Pittsburgh. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Any more public comment?
Andrew Becker.
Thank you. In 2016, there was an individual named George Sheets that lived out in El Dorado County. Some of you may have heard of him, some of you may have not. And he owned some property. And he went to his local planning agency and he said, I bought myself a piece of property and I figured out what was the most cost-efficient way for me to put a residential structure on that property. And I'm here for my building permit. And El Dorado County said that's gonna be $24,000. And they cited traffic study costs and all these other fees. So George Sheets sued them. And last year, in April 2024, he won at the United States Supreme Court level. And they passed down to the state of California exactly what you talked about here tonight. That your fees that you collect need to be proportionate for the cost of that development, the improvement, that service that you're providing. Public agency is not here to make money, to run a profit, but it is not here to run a deficit. So then you ask yourself, okay, well, we live here in Antioch in Contra Costa County, eastern Contra Costa County, and we know what traditional costs are to build here, and we know what the economy looks like here. We all understand that Antioch has struggled throughout the years, maybe because of its planning, maybe not. But then you ask yourself, if you're building a single-family home in Antioch, and you're building a single-family home in Brentwood, why is your contribution, let's say, to parks and trails, that impact fee? Why is that 4 or 5 times higher in the city of Brentwood? Whose cost is proportionate to the impact on their city? Brentwood or Antioch? Now, is Brentwood hiring contractors at higher costs? Is Antioch getting some sort of savings that we don't know about? I don't think so. But every year, you as a council put out all of these capital improvement projects, these projects that are funded by different funds that the city has. It's the cost to do business. But then you find that annually you're running a deficit. And we say, well, it's the new services. It's all the new cost. Or staffing, and that might be true, understanding that we've filled those vacancies, and that changes numbers dramatically. But then you take into account what this gentleman said about the marina. And in 2016, Contra Costa County outlawed liveaboards in their marinas in unincorporated Contra Costa County for those exact reasons that this gentleman cited: blight, public health and safety, and a lack of a public agency being able to truly meet the needs of that specific community. It's not that they didn't necessarily want liveaboards, it was that they couldn't adequately manage that program and they had to drop it. So then you say, well, Pittsburgh has all of these different components in their marina, or Benicia, but their costs are so much higher. So it's almost as if we're saying we're building our own case here. We're understanding that, unfortunately, this specific area that this gentleman brought up, the marina, is just one example of your many different fees and programs across the city that are not truly proportionate with the community's needs today. Which, coincidentally, earlier today we talked about a general plan that hasn't been corrected, or has a new plan that hasn't been adopted in almost over 20 years, but has been amended, I would say at this point, conservatively, probably 60 times. So you truly need to look at those fees regionally and understand why we are not at the same level as cities like Pittsburgh or Brentwood. And we're not changing those fees. I wonder why.
Do we have any more public comments?
We don't have any more public comment.
All right, thank you. So this is back to the council for questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, actually, I think this is a good thing when citizens come forward and we, the council, hear what they have to say. And going back to earlier presentations, specifically Park and Recreation, and there was a section in Park and Recreation about how to generate more revenue for Park and Recreation activities. One of those being that we hire someone to actually run the community park. And, you know, part of me says, oh, no, that's the city's. But, you know, I thought it had a lot of validity, especially with advertising and things of that sort. And I don't know if Park and Recreation moving forward on some of those recommendations, but I thought the city council should ask that information come forward so that we can actually look at some of the questions that they raised. The same question would be now with the marina. You know, should the city be in the marina business? Or should we hire, you know, operators to actually run it? Because if I was like this gentleman and I was very proud of my property and took care, I would be very upset and very angry, you know, that, you know, dilapidated boats are sitting, or excuse me, not sitting, they're floating next to me. And so I think that some of the questions that have been raised are legitimate questions, and they're policy questions for the city council. Do we continue running the water park? Do we continue running the marina? And so I think that as a council, we need to direct staff to bring back to us some options, either maintain, and if we maintain, what are we going to do to improve the services that we have? Or do we, you know, like Park and Recreation, consider some of those proposals and get out of the business of running them? So that's my first comment. The second comment, you know, is again, the staff report basically says that we are to recover, you know, true costs. And so if that's the policy, then I think we should stick to the policy. If it isn't the policy and that we decide as a council to, you know, subsidize nonprofits, then let's be honest about that. I mean, let's be transparent that yes, we have a couple fees here that, you know, that we're subsidizing, and be upfront about it. And I don't think there are many, but there are a couple. Then when I looked at one for the, on page 9, under miscellaneous public works fee, you know, GIS base mapping fee transferred to county. Actual county fee, $60 per lot as of 3/1/2020. So it's 5 years old. So a question immediately comes up to me, if the county hasn't changed that fee, then it makes sense. If they have changed the fee, have we stayed current? And so I don't know what the answer is, but it certainly, when you see that date, it raises the question.
May I, just, Mr. Mayor, just point of order, I think we need to have the record reflect that the public hearing is closed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, public hearing is closed.
I will say for the GIS mapping fee, that is the fee. The county will send a letter to the Public Works letting them know when the fee has been amended and send them the resolution. And this is the current fee.
For 5 years, they haven't raised it. Okay.
I
mean,
can't
what
explain
what
why,
a deal
but-
for the city of Antioch, you know, but that's the county's, you know, fault. So I think there are some things, that, you know, when I looked at the Nick Rodriguez Community Center, and at the very end on page 18, we're talking about the various fees, and there's a double asterisk. For long-term, you know, productions, contact the recreation department. Well, what does that mean? Do we sit down and negotiate fees if there's a long-term rental? Do we use, you know, the 1 day, 2 day? I mean, what does that mean? Is it a subjective decision? It's unclear to me. You don't need to come up right now. I'm just raising the question. And so I think this is good. Obviously, we want to stay current. And if we're using the CPI and the what is it, ENR? I can't remember what it is. That is certainly one way of doing it. And I guess, Ms. Merchant, you're indicating every 5 years or so we do a master fee schedule, which is really more in line with what is the actual cost, right? And so we do that every 5 years, and then every year thereafter we do the San Francisco CPI, which is one of the highest in the nation, by the way. And you know, if that's how we're doing it, okay. But I do have some reservations about, you know, some of this and nonprofit. And I really think, you know, if we move forward, I would strongly recommend not to increase the marina, to have staff come back and talk to us about this. I mean, part of the public hearing is to understand what's out there. And it's the picture that's being painted by this gentleman is not particularly pretty. I have been out there at the restaurant and almost couldn't get out because all the activities that are happening there with cars and things of that sort. It is a major safety issue as far as I'm concerned, sometimes getting out of the lot. You know, they have all those beautiful, wonderful cars screaming at each other, drinking, and doing other things. And you're a customer at a restaurant, you know, trying to support the local business, and you just want to be able to get out, and it's a little fearful at times, you know, trying to get out of that parking lot. So I think some of the issues are correct. I've experienced it myself, so I don't think it would be appropriate for us to handle or increase the cost of marina without coming back with a full report. What are we going to do? What does the city want to do with the marina?
And I will say, as far as these fees, this isn't a take one, take them all. City council actually absolutely has the purview tonight to say, we don't want to increase this. That's too much. You know, I want to make it 200 versus 175. You know, you could do that. You could remove the nonprofit. Again, that was what prior city council directions, that they wanted to offer the nonprofit rate. If you want to remove that from this master fee, we can absolutely do that. Whatever there's consensus to modify, change, not approve. If there's just one of the fees you don't want to approve, if you said, I want to do everything on this master fee other than that marina fee, you know, as long as there's consensus, that's what council can adopt this evening and will be marked for the record as approved, so.
Mr. Mayor, again, kind of going on with Councilman Freitas' comments and then listening to the audience that have spoken. I have no problem supporting fee schedules increases, but if we're going to do that, then we need to deliver a better product. If we're going to be in the water park business, and we're going to charge X amount of dollars for families to come, as was stated earlier, then the slides need to work. They need to be prepared. If we're not going to do that, then don't raise the fees. If the marina is not going to have a harbor master, if it's not going to have security, if it's not going to have the amenities that Pittsburgh next door has, or some of the comparables that we're looking at, then why raise the fees? If we're going to go down raising the fees of the cost to be in the marina, then I understand if we're going to do that, then we need to invest in doing more for the marina, for the residents that live there. If we're not gonna do that, if that's not the case, that we have the ability to do that, and whether we have the ability to run a harbor or not, as Councilman Freitas' comments were, then I don't think we should raise the price of the marina for the livable, the persons that live there, et cetera. So to me, it has to be a give and take. If we're gonna do something like raise the prices, then we need to provide a better product. If we're not gonna improve the product, then things should be status quo. That doesn't mean for all of the fee schedule increases that I saw. I mean, I think majority of them I'm in favor of. I only had some concerns about the water park and the marina because of the comments that were made tonight, that if we're gonna raise fees, we need to invest in those facilities. If we don't have the ability to invest in those facilities at this time, then I don't think we should be raising those fees. That's just my individual thoughts on that.
All right, I have a couple questions. First one is on animal services. The recommendation is to not increase those fees at all. What's the thought process behind that, being that it's $3 million a year subsidy to run it, and I'm sure all the costs are continuing to go up?
Yeah, I can let the police department speak to that more clearly, but you know, as was explained to me, pulling this together is that they wanted to encourage clearing the shelter and for adoptions and for the other services that they provide. They felt that raising the fees would really inhibit that being done, so.
Okay, does that explain it pretty much?
In a nutshell, yes.
Okay. Then, Finance Director Merchant, there's a lot of these fees that say no change on them, and I would say probably the majority by the time you get through the schedule. What's the reason why they're not being increased by CPI or some other thing? And you know, I'll use the example of I was looking at the planning fees, for example, or let's see, planning deposit application, you know, final development plan. There's all these different deposit amounts. None of them have changed. I'm just curious why some are changing and some are not. It seems arbitrary.
Well, for specific departments, I would have to let them address as to why they did not propose a fee increase. You know, but the planning deposits, that's money theoretically that would be refunded at the end of a project. But I can ask Hillary Brown, the administrative analyst from community development, to come and speak to any of the planning or community development fees that do not.
Yeah, and
have
deposits probably isn't a great example. It's more along the lines like I'm looking at the building fees, for example, and there's plan checking, you know, 7,100 evaluation, or special inspection circumstances 148, and so those aren't changing. So I'm just curious why.
Yeah, so if you notice, so most of the planning fees are changing. The only ones that aren't really changing are the deposit ones or the flat fee that don't really require a hearing process, because that's where a lot of that staff time, like the noticing piece, like you'll notice there's a noticing fee that's been added that was done, sort of a study of like real time in motion, like how much staff time and how much resources going into that. So that's why that's being raised. For building, we sat down. So Craig Andrews, who was here before you and gave a presentation, we looked at like comparable costs for about 5 other jurisdictions, and we looked at his staff time, our processing times, right? Like what's been streamlined, like what really is actually our cost for that. And we only found really 2 that needed to be increased. So that's why you're seeing that there. And again, like Don is saying, if there's anything you want to pull out and like discuss later, that's fine. These were just our best, you know, what we came up with sort of between planning and building. Of course, code, we're pretty limited, as you already hopefully kind of understand, because we presented a little bit about that. But this was just our best ability to bring forward to you what we believe is a true reflection of what it costs us, right? Reasonably speaking. So.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we are just looking for the full cost recovery on this.
Yes, definitely.
Also, just notice that on the water rate side of things, some of the rates are going up and others are staying the same. And so I was curious why they wouldn't all be increasing. I know that we made an adjustment to the rates, but I don't know if that affects other things like testing on commercial properties, detector assemblies for, you know, it says 4 inches and under is 176, no change. And so just, there's a few fees in there. Our water service charge for monthly maintenance, it has effective rates 5/1/25, so those just went into effect. That's the reason they're not changing, correct?
That is correct. The table on page 12 for the water, and then you'll see on the sewer, those are previously approved by resolution from those studies. The master fee is just memorializing those amounts.
So they've all been adjusted according to what we approved?
Yes.
Okay, okay. That answers that. And then I guess the other one, this is really minor. I know in the wintertime, folks come and get sandbags, especially in the older part of town, and I see that we've eliminated sandbags for next year. Is we are eliminating that they pay anything for them, or eliminating the service itself? Sorry, I just know that's a big deal to some folks.
Yeah, we're eliminating the payment completely, but the bags will still be provided.
Okay.
There's no way of really monitoring that at night during a storm and collecting the fee, so it's not really fair to only charge during the day but not at night. I mean, it's kind of hard.
So it's more of a service to the community.
Right.
Okay. All right, that's good. Yeah, so that's it. The other one, I know the development fees are set correct until we modify those. It's the AB 1600 fees.
So those ones are actually being adjusted by, let me find whatever page is on this.
I'm on page 11. Like we have.
Most of them are no charge.
I'm looking like park and lieu fees.
Well, the park and lieu, that's something, the other ones that are part of the AB 1600 are the development impact fees. So those ones are being adjusted by the ENR, and that is on, my goodness. Sorry, there's so many pages on here to try and scroll through and find that. Okay, so that's on page 6, the development impact fees. Those are part of the AB 1600. We have the rates. Those are being adjusted by the ENR. If you see near the bottom of page 6, under the development impact fees.
Okay. I do see that. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Cole, aren't part dedication fees dictated by the Quimby Act?
Yes, so impact fees, park fees, other things, those are set by a separate process. Those are not set tonight. Most cities will put them in their fee schedules, but those are a separate process.
And so when we look at part dedication fees that are listed here, most of them say no change.
Correct.
So when do we annually review part dedication fees?
You would typically, your impact fees, you'd do an updated nexus study. And when you do the updated nexus study, then you can go through the process of raising your fees.
So Ms. Merchant, for some of these part dedication fees, have they been raised in recent years, or have they been stable?
I am not sure when the last time those were. I don't know that from the top of my head.
So, because it is a state act that is mandated on city government, as well as counties and special districts, I guess. I think maybe we want to take a look at that, particularly when we have parks that desperately need upgrades and improvements. If the fee has not been increased, it should be.
Yes, with your impact, that's always a good practice, is to keep your impact fees current and then to keep them adjusted.
And then on page 22, towards the bottom, it has staff time fully burdened hourly billable rates. It shows it has increased by 2.4%, and then it's crossed out and says 5.1%.
Yes, because
CPI.
as I mentioned we had a staff time in 2019. The cost allocation and fee study gave staff rates as part of that fully burdened staff rates. In 2022, that study just for the fully burdened staff rate was adjusted. So last year from that study, because that went into effect in 2023, it was adjusted by 2.4% CPI from last year, and then the current year CPI is 2.7. So it's taking into account the CPI from last year and then adding on the CPI from the current year, because the fully burned rates will not be adjusted again until we do the updated fee study during this current year.
All right. And I just want to mention that I appreciate staff looking into, we did give direction as a council for staff to look into ways of bringing fees up current and increasing fees where appropriate. So I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that, you know, whether or not the water park is in the greatest shape in the world, or the marina, or whatever, you know, those are things that I think we're hearing about tonight to some extent. The water park we're aware of, the marina not so much. So to the extent that those are maybe or maybe not facts, you know, we need to do a little bit more digging into that. So just want to mention that. And then also, one other thing, it's kind of a minor thing, we're adding neighborhood park picnic table fees. So again, I appreciate the fact that we're looking at adding fees like this to maybe bring some more order to people going out and trying to use those areas. But then it's also going to take staff time to make sure that we monitor that correct. So that's the other side of it. So I'm assuming that that's taken into account by these $25 for per table, or the $40 rate. So I appreciate looking at things like that. That's good. It's just making sure that we're able to administer that and not create another complaint from people out in the community. So
On that question, why are we charging at all? It's a public park. People go to the park, you know. Now, if you reserve it, I understand it for a specified time, but we also hear people who have reserved it and other people are sitting there having lunch and it gets to be an argument.
Well, they should come to the party. So this is something that the community has requested. They've came to our office and say, hey, I want to make a reservation for a picnic table. Previous councils did not want to charge for reservation fees, and this is an opportunity for us to generate revenue and also to have, you know, people not be out there at 5 o'clock in the morning. It will be posted, and hopefully the community will respect the signage for these parks. And we looked at different amenities, we looked at different areas, and it won't be at all parks. It's only going to be at parks that fits our criteria for a group reservation. So it's going to have a bathroom, a barbecue pit, and tables and of such. So it's going to be an attraction for people to pay in advance to have parties outside at our parks.
So so I come to you, I want to reserve 2 tables, I'll pay $40 for the date and time. And then I go to that date and time and there's a kids party that are happening, and there's people there, and you say, well, you all have to leave because I have reserved, and there's an argument. Do we tell the people who have reservation if there's a problem, who to contact immediately?
Yes, that's in the application, and they are informed to call a non-emergency.
And so I'm curious, who responds?
So that would be.
Please don't tell me a police officer responds.
So that's something that we need to consider, because we do not have park rangers to enforce this. But you know, we would hope that the citizens would respect the signage and understand that we're moving in the direction of civility, and that, you know, we're trying to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to make a reservation that was not current before.
Yeah, but if my situation happens, you're telling me on the application there's a number for them to call. Who's responding immediately? Because you need an immediate response.
Right. So, I mean, you can call non-emergency number, which is on the reservation permit, or you can call 911.
Well, I have utilized the community park on James Donlin before and rented it for family some time ago. So I know it's a practice that's been ongoing. And I was at Contra Loma the other day and I saw the area there that can be reserved. So I think if there's signage, I think most people honor it, but there is the possibility. I mean, just
there's
like
always a
anything else,
possibility.
just like parking in a park, and somebody doesn't want to let you park there, and there's, you know, things happen. Unfortunately, people act foolish sometimes, but I do think people do honor reservations as long as it's marked. There's something there stating that, you know, the Rocha family or the Smith family, whoever, from this time to that time. If that's clearly there, I think most people will honor that. And my experience has been that they have, because I've gone to the community park not only for my family, but retirement parties and that sort of thing. And I've seen a reservation sign and no one's, you know, violated that. So I do think the practice works. Who to call, I don't know. When that does go the way that it's supposed to go, when people behave badly, but I think people generally honor the signage.
We have over 30 parks, so I'm pretty sure it's enough room for the community members. But there's always a possibility. It happens in the movie theaters.
Yeah.
I reserve my seat.
All right. Any other questions or comments? No?
It's interesting
Hey, give me your microphone, please.
that, what about this, you know, if there's a long-term production, how does that work?
Yeah, so that's for the movie, for the theater at the Nick Rodriguez Center.
Right.
So in the past, we have had a community member that wanted to do a production. And so not only is it just about the pricing, but it's also about the availability and what their needs are and what our availability is to serve them. So that needs to be a conversation before we actually look into them just saying, hey, I want to come in for 10 weeks at 12 o'clock.
But I mean, where do you start? I mean, because you have some prices, you know, for 2 days, $116, 1 day, $83, each additional day, $48. Are those where you start for long term?
Yeah, so you have to take into consideration what their needs are, and then you can work that out.
So it is a negotiated price.
So that, yes, and that would be basically just for the theater.
Right, no, okay, all right.
All right, if there's no other questions, would anyone like to entertain a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to move forward with the fee increases that are mentioned. I don't know in this action if I can request that we hold off on the marina and have staff review that before any increases are made there, but I'm okay with moving forward with the fee increase on all other areas with exception to the marina.
All right, so we have a motion for the fee, approval of the fee schedule, apart from the marina, which would require future research. Do we have a second? All right, I have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
I don't see it on my screen. Oh, there it is.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right, thank you. Public comments.
Yes, Crystal has a card in. Oh, I'm sorry. Melissa Case and then Crystal.
So this comment's related to the last budget or the Comfort Inn and everything that was being said in comments. So this week, animal shelter asked for volunteers on Memorial Day. So I went and volunteered, but I had a second plan about, there's always policemen nearby. So I wanted to ask them some questions. I actually ran into a code enforcement officer and I asked them a few questions. And one key insight I gained is that Antioch actually does not conduct sweeps. We conduct abatements. And the difference is that abatement gives notice and a sweep does not give notice. So we should use correct verbiage as we say all the time up here regarding other things in our community. So I think we should be clear that Antioch does not do sweeps. And I actually got that confirmed by another officer and then an officer tonight. Most abatements are scheduled within 48 hours notice of advance, providing the unhoused with notice so they can secure their essential belongings. And in fact, the one officer, code enforcement officer I spoke to actually issues their notice on Fridays for abatement scheduled for Wednesday, offering them extra time because they recognize that some individuals have more items to gather than others. I fully recognize that abating encampments week to week isn't a long-term solution, but it's worth acknowledging that Antioch has taken steps to provide shelter options most recently to give people a roof over their heads. However, true solutions require more than a roof, more than food, more than showers. It requires that people have a personal commitment to change. And I understand that this is easier said than done. That's why I propose this. If one of the local advocates, church groups, or even maybe the city, when we have an unhoused coordinator, create an accountability group that does not judge to help the unhoused take steps towards self-sufficiency despite not having a roof, it could make a true difference in someone's life. This group could be formal or informal, but it provides structure and encouragement needed to foster real change. I've personally seen many advocates promote personal responsibility when they're serving the unhoused. I'm actually willing to give my time to anyone putting this together. But I also don't want to overlook that abatement is vital for Antioch's economic growth and overall vitality. That's why I understand your vote, Ron. Clean, safe public spaces just don't lift our spirits, but they also invite new businesses, create jobs, strengthen community pride. And when encampments are thoughtfully and compassionately addressed, we pave the way for a more thriving local economy, which means more money to help our unhoused. My heart is in this.
Thank you.
Crystal and then Andrew Becker.
I was not going to talk about this. So, yes, in a sense, you're right, Melissa. However, oh, hello. I'm sorry. I apologize. My bad. However, when you have a county who comes in and uses service pros and other people, and they come in, they don't do the same thing. Okay, and we don't always have people who have time to get out. Unfortunately, some people they leave. So if they walk away from their tent, it's considered to be abandoned. And then they come in and they take all their stuff. So everything that they've accumulated, even if it's not trash, if it's in a spot where they feel it's, in the site or whatever, they just come and take it. So it's not fair. I'm sorry. Whether it's abatement or whether it's, whatever. I do understand the comment. However, let's take it back to your comments. Your comment was not, and I have to recorrect some of my people because they said that you said that sweeps are going to continue anyways, as if you were being rude or disrespectful about it. I do get it. You weren't being rude. I do get that sweeps are going to continue anyways because, you guys have to do something to get them up off the city streets. I get it. There's no win or win-win situation in this aspect, okay? But the fact that you, Mayor, did not read up on what Housing Key was and why we needed Home Key and what it was about, and the fact that you sat there and stated, I don't really understand it, was just absolutely floored me. Like, that's what I didn't understand. I didn't understand how you come into a special meeting, but you really don't know about it or about Home Key or why we even needed to push the application forward. All it took was a little bit of, you could have sat down with Adam for 10 seconds and known about it. You could ask him all the questions you want. This man is like a book. So for real, next time we have a special meeting, just do a little bit of, a little bit of research, because I honestly think you would have voted different had you not just listened to constituents, had you not just listened to what you said was your heart, but if you would have just really read it and really asked the questions that needed to be asked, I think you would have thought a little bit different about it. But that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Andrew Becker.
Thank you. May 15th, was the 1-year anniversary for Raheem Koh's death. And for those of you who don't know, Raheem was the unhoused individual that was over there at the Chevron near Deer Valley High School for quite a while. And me and Raheem used to sit and we used to talk about home key. And I think that it's safe to say that these programs are complex and nuanced. And it's difficult for all of us to truly understand what these opportunities are and how they come together and meet these timelines. And that was the same for Raheem. But what he did share with us was opportunity. His life was tragically taken from him in the early mornings here in our city. And to this day, I don't know if that crime has been solved or if there is headway that has been made there, which in itself is sad. These individuals that are a part of our communities, Raheem's mother who spoke with community members and lived just blocks away from where he was. He had a home, he had a family, but he had these mental health and behavioral health barriers. And that's what home key is. And I applaud you all and I thank you and city staff for your endeavors. And what I hope most of all, for those of us that have faith, is that when Raheem was called home, those barriers were lifted. And I hope that he looks down over us all now and sees this city, truly sees this city for what it is, and sees this opportunity for what it is. And it's sad that we hope for people like Raheem, my biological father, all of our family or friends that we know that have been touched by housing insecurities or mental health diseases, that it's complex. And we struggle sometimes to find out how much is a person worth? What is the financial dollar number that that person is equal to within your community? And we have to when we're talking about budgets or programs. But I just ask you all, through this home key and this process, step back and remember that you don't do it for the dollars. You do it for Raheem. Thank you.
No other public comments? All right, staff communications? All right, council communications and future agenda items.
Mr. Mayor, July is coming up and normally we go dark for one of those meetings, so I guess we need to discuss if that's happening again this year.
Okay. Can have that on the next agenda, please? All right. Anybody else? All right, hearing nobody else. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, please cast your votes.
Motion to adjourn at 10:33 carries 4-0.
Meeting adjourned.
This is one of our earliest meetings. We got out before 11.